This is going to be a royal bastard of a podcast. Don't think I've ever been so uncomfy. But
I don't know why you didn't just take a chair for the podcast.
I know, mate. I'm really, really silly. Really, I'm half tempted just to lie down in my bed.
Why don't you just see, you can't. Do you remember the old roller wheel bed chairs that you change the angle?
Yeah.
So you could have them sat up.
Yeah.
You can't do that anymore.
No, you can't. Not at all.
These cheap fucking hinges that they put in to save money.
Do you think? I think they're better, mate. I prefer a flat bed.
I prefer a roller wheel, mate.
Maybe you should go old school. Buy yourself a magic carp bed chair or something.
Magic carp?
Yeah, can you remember them?
No.
Or was it dragon carp maybe, actually?
No, I don't remember that. I had an old solar Max 4 Realtree one that I got from Truro, that sea fishing shop in the middle of Truro in Cornwall. I had that thing for fucking years. It did well, mate. Did well with the old roller wheels, like that.
ProLogic one.
Was it ProLogic or Solar? It was ProLogic, wasn't it?
Mate. Yeah, I remember it. They had that kind of weird camo at the time, didn't they? It was like Bullrush Reedy sort of camo. Can you remember that?
Yeah, it's called Max 4 Realtree.
Ah, okay.
Yes. If you remember, Pete, I had the Max 4 Realtree long sleeve t-shirt as well. You remember that?
Mate, I remember. And at the time, you were telling me I needed to fucking dress more carpy. I've got photos of you in that, mate.
There's a picture of me with a big bream, isn't there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When ever since you put that story up of me with the soy tattoo for my birthday, I'm right. And fucking photos are coming out. They're going to see the light of day.
Oh, it's fucking hideous, mate. Absolutely hideous.
Oh, cringe.
Anyway, should we go?
Yeah, we're ready.
I think we're into it anyway, aren't we?
I think so, mate.
Anyway, welcome back to the Carp Chronicles podcast. It has been ages since we put an episode out, and we do apologise about that. Pete, how long has it been, mate? I think 6 weeks. I want to say about 6 weeks.
You know, since the last one came out, yeah, it probably is 6 weeks, but it's actually probably a little bit longer before we actually recorded it, I'd say.
Yeah, probably 2 months.
We've had a bit of bad luck with episodes which didn't air. So, yeah, that's sort of thrown us back a bit. And then, obviously, I don't know, we just run out of time, haven't we? I mean, I went back to work from furlough, which ate a lot of time up. And then, well, yeah, as you know, I've had a sort of a family bereavement, which has sort of taken a few weeks out of my life as well. So it's been a bit of a funny time. I've not done a lot of fishing, and I'm out on the bank tonight, and it is heaven, mate. I am enjoying life.
Jealous. Yeah, I'm jealous of you, mate. I was supposed to be fishing as well tonight, but how we record this podcast is a little bit different when we're out on the bank, obviously. My second phone is screwed, so taking one for the team, and I'm not fishing tonight, which I'm a bit gutted about. It's also the biggest moon of the year tonight, isn't it? Did you know that?
I did know that, yeah. Do you know what? The only reason I'm fishing as well is because we had the podcast booked in, and it's very much two birds with one stone. And, mate, the weather conditions down here for me are just perfect. We've had this super low pressure. Like you say, it's the biggest moon of the year tonight. I'm feeling confident. I actually am. I'm seeing fish in front of me as well. I think I've got as good a chance as any tonight, I have to say.
Do you want to set the scene of what you're doing, or not really?
Yeah, I can do. So, well, do you know what? So in front of me now, where I've set myself up, I'm looking at a lovely view of a big fucking bush of brambles, mate, which is a little bit frustrating. It's just I've set myself up for this podcast so I don't make too much background noise. So I'm fishing real tight in the edge. It's a very deep pit. It's all sort of margin work. I've pushed the body right back as far away from the water as I can do here. Hence why I'm behind this this bramble bush. Yeah, and so like I say, I've got 2 rods in the edge. I'm fishing over remember the nut bait? I think I've spoken about it on the podcast. During the furlough months, I sort of had a lot of time on my hands, so I've rolled up a lot of bait for the season ahead, and I haven't actually really started fishing yet. So I'm fishing with my nut bait, and then I'm fishing with tiger nuts as well on the hair, because my bait I've made it. To be honest, I've made it so it's super soluble for my short session angling. So like tonight, I'm here for really 10 hours fishing overnight, and I'm gone again in the morning. But it's just too soft to leave on the hair, and I haven't made any hardened hook bait, so I've had some tiger nuts fermenting for a little while, and I'm fishing with them, and that sort of sums it up, really.
Yeah, nice. This is probably your first session of the spring. Well, not that you can really call it a spring, but this is your first session this spring, right?
Yeah. This is, you know what? This is my third night of the year. So I did the opening night of the season. Well, I say the season. It's ridiculous, isn't it? When we were allowed to fish, I think it was a Monday night. I sort of ventured down to a local club water and had a couple out. I did another night a few weeks after that on the same water, and I think I blanked. And then I've just not fished. I've missed out on some sort of prime fishing sort of time, and this is the first one.
Yeah, it's, as we record this, it is the 25th of May, 2021. It's odd spring to say the least, isn't it? It was literally hailing yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Hailing at the end of May is it's not what you want to see, is it? But yeah, you have obviously missed some good fishing. Certainly the waters around here, everyone's like, oh, it's fishing shit this year, fishing, but they're coming out. Like the bigger fish are definitely coming out. There was a little spate of him a couple of weeks ago where a few of the bigger fish came out, which is good to see. But yeah, I'm similar to you. I haven't been doing that much fishing at all. In fact, I haven't done a night for, I can't remember. I've literally only been able to afford enough time for just a couple of hour sessions stalking in the daytime. Luckily, though, I'm able to kind of time it around favourable weather changes, etc.
Yeah.
So I've got that going in my favour. But yeah, I've not had the time to do an overnighter. As I said, I was going to tonight. That didn't work, but I think next week I will most definitely be out for a night's worth of fishing. And there we go. That's pretty much us up to speed without boring the life out of you all. Yeah, that is pretty much what's been happening in a nutshell. So I think in this episode, we're going to cover some questions, aren't we, Pete? Unless you've got anything you want to cover. We put on Instagram, I think it was 2 weeks ago, because we were going to record an episode, but unfortunately we couldn't. So we've got a load of listener questions. And I think that's all we're going to do, isn't it, mate? And then we'll probably just go off on tangents from there.
Yeah, I think so. The listeners' questions are always good, aren't they? They always go down to little sort of rabbit holes, don't they? Give us plenty to talk about.
They do, mate. Yeah, indeed they do. I think it's nice. It almost feels like you're kind of connected to your listenership as well, without sounding too cheesy. You almost kind of, get to know people, and yeah, it's nice to hear from everyone. No doubt we'll go off on loads of tangents from the questions as well. So I don't think we're going to be short on content. Before we jump into those questions, Pete, anything else you want to go over on this podcast? Anything you want to touch upon or not?
I'll tell you what we should do, mate. You should introduce or talk about our hook baits, given that we haven't actually advertised them.
Ridiculous. Yeah, good point, mate. Yeah, we've been having a lot of questions about this as well. Like, quite a few people have asked us to do an episode talking about our hook baits that we released on baitbros.co.uk. So slightly different website for selling our bait. Obviously our normal podcast is found on our podcast website, which you'll find linked in all of our social media. But yeah, bait is sold on baitbros.co.uk, which is obviously run by us. It's our little bait branch, if you like. Yeah, well, the thing is, it's a bit odd, isn't it? Because we briefly mentioned it on the intro of the John Baker episode. Then that was it. I put a post up on Instagram the other day just saying, the last batch has been made. When they're gone, they're gone. So I suppose talking about them now is kind of arse backwards because they're not going to be available for much longer. But why not? Should we go through them all?
Yeah, let's do it.
Do you want to do that, mate?
Mm-hmm. Do I want to do it?
Yeah.
All right, mate. So Which one are we going to go for first?
You tell me, Pete. You tell me.
Okay, let's go for the toucans.
Toucans.
The toucans. You don't like it when I abbreviate things, do you?
I don't.
The Queen's best English.
Toucans. Yeah, no, I don't like it. Yeah, toucans.
Yeah. So I mean, well, the toucans is a classic recipe, isn't it?
It's a bit of an old school one.
Yeah, we've used it for a long time. Something we're confident in, and we've just sort of added our own little twist to it. I mean, I don't know how in depth we're going to. We haven't discussed this, have we? So I don't know how in depth.
Not at all.
We want to go with them. I don't know if you're going to put out like the recipe, or if you want to just talk about.
Definitely not going to put out the recipe. I presume you mean the classic recipe.
Yeah.
Rather than our version. I don't even think we should do that, no. Because, I mean, look, we've made the last batch. There's probably... there's not much left of them. But we might release them again at a later date. And I think it would be a shame to spoil our kind of intellectual property. We definitely ain't going to tell them the ins and outs, sort of tricky bits of our bait anyway, because I just think that's just not the way to go. But yeah, I mean, for those of you who don't know, we're selling pop-ups. They're all pop-ups. They're generally high-track, bright pop-ups, except for the Hooters, which perhaps we'll come on to in a moment. They comprise of... There's no glass spheres or plastic spheres or anything like that. It is an old-school style mix, which is comprised of different milk proteins, which obviously float, and some other bits and bobs. So they're all natural, if you will. Rather than these kind of like cheap pop-ups that are just full of plastic and glass. They're the real deal, and the base is expensive, to say the least. But yeah, the toucans are yellow. It's got a kind of fruity, creamy type vibe. And I've just realised I'm taking over from you explaining, aren't I, Pete? Carry on, mate.
It's all right, mate. You'll make it sound way better than me. So there's two fruity flavours and a cream sort of Scopex flavour in there. Two different carboxylic acids, and an essential oil, essentially, isn't it?
There's more than two carboxylic acids in there, mate.
Well, okay. See, I've got two.
No, there's not. No. We'll let you off for that, though, because, to be fair, I make the hook baits, don't I?
You did, mate, and now I want to know what's in them, but you can't say on the podcast.
Sure, this is royally pissing off our listeners.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Let's move on. Let's move on to the Hooters. Tell us about the Hooters, mate.
The Hooters. So it's a darker hook bait. It's a brown colour, certain sort of, well, I'm going to say my nose would pick up the maple and the cinnamon. And again, for like the sort of attractor package put to it, we can't really discuss it, I guess. But that's sort of the vibe you get. It's certainly maple and cinnamon really sort of come through. It's a darker hook bait. And it's just a little bit different, isn't it, to the rest of the range?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously these hook baits, they're like, you know, what you'd call high attract, bright, high flavour levels, in your face kind of hook baits. And what we wanted, and what I find useful, is sometimes having a, you know, I don't want to say high flavour level because it's not all about the flavours, but high levels of attractors and stimulants, let's say, but in a darker hook bait, you know. So these are kind of, they're quite dark brown, aren't they? Mm-hmm. They're very, very subtle, but obviously the stimulant levels, etc., and flavour levels are quite high. You know, the kind of levels you'd normally see in like a bright orange or bright pink or something. So that was the idea behind it, and it works well. They've definitely got their place. But yeah, there's two flavours in there. There's two essential oils. There's an oleo resin. There's feed stimulants. And that there's a few little kind of goodies in all of our hook baits. That's a kind of universal thing that I just don't think we would probably make a hook bait of this nature without. So yeah, those are quite good. You're right though, you can kind of get the kind of woody, savoury, a little bit of maple and cinnamon from the smell of them, which by the way, means absolutely bugger all. It's not what they smell like. That's not what's important. It's how the carp detect them. Should we just run through the other two, just so we're not boring people that aren't interested in these? Next up, we've got tree fruit, which is something I actually spent a lot of time working on. Well, I say a lot of time. It's a very well thought out recipe, but it's fairly new to me, in as much as we utilised a certain essential oil that we got put onto probably about a year ago on one of our podcast episodes by Dean Towie. So yeah, we'll let you work out whether we used the orange, or I then later experimented with the tangerine, which I had good success with. But basically, there's a citrus essential oil in there. There's some flavors as well. There's a lot of esters in that hookbait as well. And to be honest, it's done really, really well since bringing it out. My fish in my tank absolutely love it. I'm not feeding them pop-ups, obviously. I'm talking about the attractor, taste, etc. profile. But yeah, I'm really quite proud of those tree fruits, actually. It's one of those recipes, like, put it together, obviously tweaked it, but it just works really, really well. Basically, I chucked the essential oils on top of an older recipe that I'd used, and then I kind of tweaked it further from there as well. But yeah, those are good. They've been catching well, as of all of the hook baits, but particularly those probably, and the toucans. And then lastly, we've got Yummies, which we named in honor of an old dodgy kebab house that me and Pete used to go to. That's in Newquay. Oh no, it's not. It's in Weybridge, isn't it? Sorry.
Weybridge, yeah.
Yeah, in Weybridge. And that's just a real smelly, fishy, crabby type flavour. There's some spices in there, oleoresins, essential oils as well. So it's a kind of crabby, stinky hookbait with a twist of the spice. You can definitely get the spices through there as well. Again, just great bait. It's just going to work very, very. Excuse me, I've got burping. It's just going to work very, very well wherever it goes. There's things in it that obviously the carp latch onto with their receptors, and they find it very, very easy to find. So it's a good one. It's bright pink as well, so it's quite in your face. Loads of organic acids in it, and yeah, some really interesting bits in that one. And that's it. 4 hook baits. Yummies, which is the crabby, spicy one, which is bright pink. Tree fruit, which is bright orange. The Hooters, which is the kind of mapley, cinnamony one, which is dark colour brown. And then the Toucans, which is bright yellow. As I said, like, we've made the last batch. That's it now. Maybe we'll bring them out in the future, maybe winter time, because, classic kind of bright hook baits, winter, spring, good tactics for that time of year. But these are the last batch, so if you want some, go ahead to our website. I don't want to make this sound like an advert or anything, but if you don't want to miss out, then don't miss out. It's baitbros.co.uk. You can get all 4 tubs for 30 quid, which is cheap as chips. They're going to last you for ages. That is it.
Nice, you've rounded up, mate. Oh, go on.
Yeah, might as well mention it now. Next in line, because we want to keep trickling things into the market that we think are really unique and have a place in the bait making market, and that actually are going to really make a difference. So we've got a flavor range coming out very, very soon. The flavors are exclusive to us. They're actually, we put our own slant on them, and this is inspired by John Baker. So those of you who listen to our John Baker episode, you'll remember that John gets some of his flavors made by flavor houses, of course, but when he gets them, he then adds certain things and gets them to exactly how he wants them. So then no one can copy them. So no one can say, oh, I've got the same strawberry as John Baker, for example. That's not possible because he has his own. So we've done the same thing. We've had some of the flavors knocked up for us you can't get better flavors. I'm playing with one now, and I've just tipped it upside down, realised the lid isn't on properly. So I've got the butter spice all over my desk right now.
Nice.
But yeah, so we've blended them, worked on them a lot, and yeah, I think they're going to enhance any mix, and they will be out very, very soon. Realistically, they're going to be out probably by early June. So if you listen to this after early June, chances are they're on the website. So go ahead, check those out, and yeah, that is it. I think we'll leave it there because I don't want it to sound like a massive advert for our bait stuff.
No, nicely rounded up. And I think sort of like I'm going to continue now actually. Like the flavours, for example, like the hook baits are, to us, they're quite labour intensive, aren't they? I say us to you.
Yeah.
So they're going to sort of like, they're the kind of thing where like we just do a little batch and once they're gone, they're gone. But things like the flavours will probably stay on the website and they'll have a little bit more longevity. So it's a lot easier for us to get hold of, kind of thing. So, and it's not just flavours. Eventually, there's a few little ingredients and little bits that we've used over the years that we're going to start putting on there. And it's just stuff that you probably can't get anywhere else, isn't it? Little things that we like to use and just put it out there. It's going to be cool. Turn into little bait barons.
Definitely. If you've seen our little bait website, you'll see the little, what is it, tagline, I think you'd call it, underneath the Bait Bros logo. Secrets released. I know it sounds a little bit pedantic, but that's what we want it to be. We want it to be things that like are a little bit under the radar that you wouldn't really see or hear about elsewhere. Might piss off some people, I don't know, but that's what we want to do, you know. So yeah, there's a certain powder or two that we really want to bring out to market. My only worry is that it is really expensive. But I think, you know, people will pay for it if they know what it is and what it's capable of.
Yeah, and it's the kind of like people are using this. We're talking grams to a kilo. It's like, a little goes a very, very long way. So we're all good there.
Exactly.
Yeah, people understand, mate.
Yeah, and that's not DMPT, because I know so many people be like, oh, DMPT they're on about. It's not DMPT. That DMPT is no secret. It's a good additive, but yeah, it's not a secret. And look, to be fair, I mean, I'm saying that. Is anything a secret now? Not much. You know, it's it's things get passed around, you know what I mean? They might not be mainstream knowledge, but, you know, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I'm like, you know, we're pioneering new things that we're excavating from the freaking Himalayas or anything like that. It's just stuff that is definitely not in the mainstream narrative. And it's stuff that you're hard to find elsewhere. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled. I'm quite excited about that side of things as well. I think that's quite cool. We're not going to be making bugger all money on it, but I think it's just quite a cool thing to do.
And the cool bit is now we're starting to get some capture photos come through, aren't we? So that's the really cool thing, because some people have had some pretty special fish. It's just nice. It's just a little bit of a fuzzy feeling that we've sort of created something and they've used it and had a result. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's from our hook baits.
Yes.
Not our ingredients. The ingredients aren't out yet, just in case we're confusing people. But yeah, no, definitely it is nice to see. Yeah, definitely. Anyway, I think we should move on. But first, before we do that, before we jump into these questions, and there are some good ones this time actually. Before we do that, we need to mention our sponsor, of course, our awesome sponsor, carphuntergiveaways.co.uk. Man, those guys have been actually just really, really good blokes. Obviously, it's been about 6 weeks since we popped a podcast out. We explained the situation to them. They're absolutely good as gold. So I just want to kind of not only promote them as our sponsor, but just, you know, thank them like on the podcast without getting too soppy. But you know, they're great guys. They're very understanding, and yeah, really kind of proud to be producing these podcasts with the support of them. They're good blokes and they do good stuff, like their prize draws. If you haven't seen them, go ahead, check them out. It's not cheap crap. It's not really expensive to enter. There's something in there for everyone. It's just a good bit of fun, and yeah, people are winning these prizes every day, multiple prizes every single day, and it doesn't cost much to enter. So go ahead, check them out. They also give money back to Phoenix Heroes, who help war veterans and their families who suffer with PTSD, which is just another awesome organisation. And I like to think that having them as our sponsor. Obviously, we're promoting Carp Hunter giveaways, but we're also in a very roundabout way helping Phoenix Heroes as well, which is obviously a lovely thought. So that's it from our sponsor. Go ahead, check them out if you haven't done so already. carphuntergiveaways.co.uk. Also check out Phoenix Heroes, because they do some awesome things as well. I believe their website would be phoenixheroes.com or .co.uk. I should have been prepared. Didn't plan on mentioning them, to be honest.
No.
Just off the cuff.
Yeah, gotta love a podcast.
Out of practice, mate. That's what's going on.
That's it. So where are we going now? You've got some questions, haven't you?
Yeah.
So obviously I've got no idea what these questions are, because you've not shared these with me. So do you want to sort of rattle them off and put me on the spot a little bit and see what we can come up with?
You want to answer them, do you?
Well, we can do, yeah. I can't read them to you, mate, so...
Someone specifically asked that you didn't answer.
Okay.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
Anyway, just to backtrack. Yeah, no, I'm not joking. Found the website. It's phoenixheroes.co.uk. Just want to clear that up if you want to check them out. PTSD veteran support. Yes, mate. Questions. Let's get into it. Some of them I'm not going to read out because it's just shit. But some of them are good. No offense if you sent us a question and I don't read it out. That's going to be offensive now, isn't it?
That's too
Matt Whack Wheeler, your range of pop-ups. We've already done that for you, my man. Hopefully that helps. Matthew Richardson 600, hook types and makes for different rigs. I've had a bit of dilemma about this recently. All the best, Matt. Thanks for your question, Matt. Hook types, Pete, and brands. What are you using at the minute?
I'm using on both rods. So one rod I'm fishing with a Ronnie rig and a pop-up. And that has got a quarter curve. And then I'm fishing on my bottom bait rig on the other rod. That's a quarter curve as well. I've been using curve shanks, mate, for pretty much all my fishing, actually. Yeah, I'm not buying the Kamakuras. I'm sharpening them myself. Yeah, nothing. I'm just confident in the curve shank hook. You get a good hook hold. Don't drop fish on them. I think they suit the majority of rigs that I use. They absolutely suit to a T, and I'm just confident in them. You've recently on a bit of advice, I guess, or someone put you on some new hooks, didn't you? So what are they that you've got then?
Yeah, I mean, people who listen intently will know that I can't sharpen hooks for shit. I'm just really bad at it, okay? So I get the quarter Kamakuras, which are just lethally sharp. Only problem is they're not the strongest hooks in the world, especially not for kind of hit and hold and weed fishing. The lakes I fish are just rammed with weeds, so you need a strong hook. So yeah, I'm always on the lookout for something else. So I tried IB hooks. They have their own hook range and they sharpen them. They've got some nice patterns, actually. I couldn't tell you what they call their patterns, but because I don't have any packets in front of me. But yeah, I mean, generally, most of the time, I'm using a stiff rigger styled hook with the outturned eye, because I'm either fishing a chod rig. I fish a lot of chods nowadays, or hinge stiffs. There used to be a lot of hinge stiffs for me now, but I've got to be honest, these days, a lot of the style of fishing I do is a chod rig is the way to go. And that's not just because I'm like pub chucking it out and hoping for the best. I like presenting in certain areas where really you need a chod rig to do it efficiently. So yeah, a lot of the time I'm fishing with that. If I'm fishing a bottom bait, generally that's hard on the deck. And yeah, that's generally in line with a really heavy lead. That's how I fish that, and that would be I fish with the wide gapes, the quarter Kamakura wide gapes. I don't like beaked points. I mean, I fish gravel pits, so they are good. Stop with the blunting off of the hook, but actual mechanic wise, I like a straight point. Obviously, I can't do that with the Kamakuras. But those are the two hooks that I would use. Now, I got these IB hooks. I think it's called IB. IB hooks. Yeah, IB hooks. Pretty sure it is. Because actually, it was Bernie who co-runs Carp Hunter giveaways. He said, "Oh, they're fucking like, they're just as good as the quarter ones, like just as sharp as the quarter ones." They're not. So I bought a load of those, and they're sharp. Don't get me wrong, but I just found them a little bit hit or miss. Sorry, IB hooks. I don't mean to shit talk you, but they were good, but just not. I don't know. They were sharp, don't get me wrong, really sharp. Probably sharp enough for most people, because I know not everyone likes them when they're like absolute needle sharp, but I do. They were just, some of them just weren't quite sharp enough. And I realise it's hard judging them next to the quarter Kamakuras, because they are ridiculously sharp. But yeah, anyway, long story short, I'm still on the lookout for a stronger pattern that is really, really sharp. So if anyone listening, knows just the thing, please let me know. But yeah, long-winded answer to the question. Generally, I'm using the stiff rigger type hooks. If not, then I like a wide gape styled hook, but with a straight point. I tell you, the pattern that I like is the Nash Fang Twister. I think that's what they're called.
Yeah,
they're like fairly short shank, right? Wide gape, straight point, quite an aggressive eye. That is my kind of hook. If they were sharper, or if I could sharpen hooks, I'd probably be using those. And they're strong as well. They're really, really strong. So that's my ideal pattern, to be honest.
Have you had problems with the quarter ones opening out on you at all, or is this just sort of from you've seen other people's experiences?
No, I've had issues.
Oh, have you?
Not good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, last fish I see the quarter ones seem odd. Like they also seem like they will, like not just open out, they'll like snap. Heard reports of that, but the last fish I caught actually, now it was in a hit and hold snag situation, and I really do mean hit and hold. Fishing with braid, I understand. Look, obviously it's done safely. I wouldn't fish for fish at their detriment, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But it's a kind of put a fair bit of pressure on. And yeah, that hook was opened up when I got it in. I was like, shit, I was lucky to get it in, to be honest with you. Right. So yeah, I have problems with those hooks, mate. They're not the best.
They do like a wider gauge, don't they? Like a heavier gauge hook as well. Do they not do the Kamakuras in those?
They're sending them out to their testers. They are they're around, but they're not actually for sale yet. And I can't get hold of any. But when they do that, then yes, that's fine. But I don't know what is keeping them, because they've been in test for fucking ages.
They're crazy sharp hooks. They are fantastic, to be fair.
Yeah, and this is the problem. I think I'm probably being a bit unfair to the to these hook sharpening companies like IB Hooks. I mean, it's probably impossible to compete with that, and maybe I've got too high expectations.
So what are IB Hooks doing? Are they sort of hand sharpening hooks before they send them out?
Yeah, well, I think they've got like a normal non-hand sharpened range of their own hooks. So they obviously buy them in bulk or something, because they're not very expensive. Pretty much, I don't know, kind of the normal price for a pack of hooks. And they sharpen some of them as well, so you obviously get them sharpened, or the standard non-sharpened ones. The standard non-sharpened ones are obviously cheaper.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're their own patterns. They're nice, strong. I mean, they're great, don't get me wrong. Yeah, there we go.
It's probably, mate, because realistically, sort of like hook sharpening, like you say you can't do it, it's probably something you should just persevere with, because it's like once you can do it, it's quite useful, isn't it? And then you can be your own sort of critic, and you know what hook you're going to be happy with, not happy with. I don't know, surely it's just something that's probably worth you just investing a bit of time and practice and just learning.
Couple of things. I just don't enjoy doing it, right? If I don't enjoy doing something, I'm probably not going to get that good at it. I'm just being honest with myself, really. It's not natural to me. I don't enjoy it in the slightest, and I just don't. Yeah, I would just rather get a freaking hook that's already sharpened and not piss about with all that stuff. As well as that, I mean, you kind of said that you were like, you could get them extremely sharp and you were happy with how you sharpen hooks. No offense, mate. I looked at your hook. They are no way near sharp enough for me. Yeah, so it makes me think, well, you know, if it's, you've been sharpening hooks for years, and if you can't get them how I want them,
yeah,
it's going to be a steep learning curve for me.
Yeah, maybe.
Just to slam you. Sorry, mate.
No, that's all right. I think, yeah, you know what you like, Sam.
Yeah, your hooks are pretty blunt, Pete, to be fair.
Yeah, cheers, mate. When have you inspected my hooks?
Every time I look at your rig in horror.
Yeah. Well, I know you wouldn't pick it up and touch it, so I don't know.
Wow.
A sticky sharp.
You showed me, and we compared them to. Do you remember we compared them to Jason Hayward's hand sharpened hooks?
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I thought I won that battle, to be honest.
Yeah.
Poor Jason.
I mean, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong; they're all right. I mean, I like them really sharp.
Yeah.
They're better than your rigs.
Cheers, mate.
I wouldn't chuck your ribs off of a pier. Put it that way.
Yeah, you don't. You're fussy, aren't you? See,
I'm
I'd
not fussy.
put
I just like
your rig and my rig like side by side, and I'd be like, they're both going to catch fish.
Yours don't, though, do they, mate?
No, let's not go into that. Hey, mate, I've had a record-breaking year this year, anyway.
You smashed it. Yeah, you have.
Yeah.
You have. You've done well, mate. I'm only teasing you.
Go on.
Go on. What are you
Well, no, I was going to say, I think we've sort of covered the hook patterns, haven't we?
Yeah. So we've got Kieran1352, who said hook baits and recipes, including amounts. That'll be nice, wouldn't it? But we can't give away our recipes, dude. I'm afraid.
No. If people go through the back catalogue, I go over the ones, my winter classics. I think they've been.
Have you?
Yeah, I've done it. But then if we're sort of looking to release that, maybe with a tweak or something, if in the coming winter, then we probably don't want to go over it too much.
Why don't you
if
just
these guys dig around and
well, look, why don't you just give them the recipe, but just don't tell them the little powdered tricks that we do.
Okay, so this is my cold water one, which I use pretty much every winter now for the last maybe 8 years or something. And it's deep.
Any hauls?
Oh, I do. I'll tell you what. Actually, oh my god, I have got the biggest rat literally in the front of my body. I hate rats. Anyway, I've got it's DT Baits, Green Beast, which is a blackcurrant flavour. Which I always used to think was on an EA base, but it's not, and I don't know what base it's on, to be honest. And I use DT Baits 2T as well, so 2 mil of each. This is quite a potent sort of cold water hook bait, so 2 mil of each to 1 egg. And I'll use, off the top of my head, I haven't got my little book here, I use half a teaspoon citric acid in there, and I'll use a couple of drops of butyric in there as well. And that is sort of like a classic winter hook bait for me anyway.
Simple. That's simple and effective, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, easy peasy.
Yeah. And then on top of that, you'd perhaps experiment with a different essential oil maybe and some other bits and bobs, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've used eucalyptus oil with it. I've used all sorts of different bits of bobs over the years, but I keep sort of reverting back to the original recipe, if I'm honest. It's yeah. It's a classic for me.
Definitely, mate. Yeah, definitely. I think we're all guilty, aren't we, of thinking, what else can we cram in there to make it better? Sometimes it doesn't make it better, and you're just actually better off with a basic recipe, like, do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like that. But, yeah, you've definitely caught your fair share of fish on that. So, yeah, give it a go. Hopefully that answers your question, Kieran. Cool. Next, we've got John Dubu Angling. I know that username. He messages us a lot, doesn't he? Is it John Wilson? Is it John Wilson? Wilkinson?
Yeah. I think John bought some of our hook baits, actually. He's been a long-time listener and sort of supporter of the page. Normally, yeah. Good chat.
Has he bought some, has he?
Yeah, he has.
Nice. He's asked, I've only just read his question, when's Dean next on? Brackets, air quotes, whatever you'd call them. Is it commas? I don't know. I'm illiterate. Is it commas where you do the things above the words?
Yeah.
Like in brackets?
That'll do, mate.
Commas? Commas, right. So he's put, when's Dean next on? Commas, giving it all away. And I think he's taking the piss out of me, trying to like push him for some secrets or something. Yeah. Dean is going to come back on. He definitely is. He's got some things he wants to talk about, rant about, maybe. And yeah, he'll be back on for sure. We need to arrange it. As to when it'll be, I don't know. Before the end of summer, I guess. But he'll be back on. And if anyone's, I mean, Dean's like everyone. Well, not everyone, but we still get a lot of messages about Dean. And yeah, people really, really enjoy his episodes. So if you've got any burning questions for Dean, just send them across to us as and when, and we'll try and get them covered on his episode. But yeah, he'll be back on. John, thanks for your question, mate. Thanks for supporting us, as always. He sent another one. John Dubu again. Best bits from the podcast so far. What you've learnt. Which guests do you want on next? Different question. I like that. Pete, you go.
Mate, that has really put me on the spot, because I need time to mull something like that over. I mean, why? Because mate, first of all, the podcast, quite often we have a few beers, and a lot of the time, like, so for you, for example, you do the vast majority of edits. So you listen back to them. For me, a lot of the time, I'll do a podcast and I might not listen back to it again. Or it might take me like a little while before I listen back to it. And when you do listen back to it, I've forgotten a lot of the stuff we've spoken about, and it's not stuck in my mind. I don't know, they're very sort of like an off-the-cuff thing. If you go on, mate, you sort of, because I know that you'll have sort of thought about this, and you're going to know exactly what you want to say to answer, and I'll have a little think.
I don't.
Oh, okay.
I don't, to be honest. I mean, so the best bits from the podcast so far, I mean, it's got to be the bait bits is right up there for me. I would say the best podcast for me was John Baker. Just sitting down with, I mean, not with him, but remotely sitting down with John Baker for a couple of hours and just talking about bait, for me was, I mean, I never thought that was going to happen when I first started this podcast, or when we first started this podcast. Sorry.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much a highlight for me. That's pretty much the peak. I mean, it doesn't get much better than John Baker, does it? So I'd say that was the best bit for me. But as well as that, I mean, I loved having Dean on. I loved having Jason Ryder on. Stephen White was really interesting as well. Bit of a dark horse. I didn't expect it to be that kind of involving, for want of a better phrase. Like that was a very good episode. I also love the Ben Pinniger episode, which might fly under the radar, but I thought he was great. Really, really interesting. Excuse me, burping. Really, really interesting guy, really modest. And yeah, once he got going and sort of opened up a bit, that was great. Obviously, I love having Sean Harrison on. That was fantastic. I don't know. I feel like I'm just listing all the guests here. Yeah. It's it's too hard to pick it down. And if I've forgotten anyone, you know.
So, mate, the fact you've listed
probably didn't enjoy it that much.
You've helped me in my thought process there. The Stephen White one was great, because
it was good.
It was brilliant, because a lot of the things that he discussed were things like that I've sort of witnessed and seen in my own fishing, but actually, until sitting down and talking with him, it didn't sort of resonate in my head, and it sort of just unlocked some things for me with bait, and some things. Go on.
He just ran the podcast himself. He was in control of that podcast. I mean, I think I went like an hour and a half or so without saying anything. He was just on a roll, made for podcasting.
Absolutely. We didn't finish until it was like nearly 3 a.m. I was just like, oh, my alarm's going off in 3 hours.
I think we'd rounded up the call, hadn't we? The recording, sorry, like said goodbye to our listeners. I think he was still going past that, wasn't he?
He did,
Like,
mate.
just to us.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. No. Yeah.
We weren't recording or anything like that. That had all stopped, but he's still pummeling us with the bait knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very for a bait enthusiast, for somebody who who does it purely for his own fishing. Incredibly knowledgeable guy. Applies it, and he's caught some absolutely amazing fish to show the results as well.
And he's been carp angling, I think it's about 10 years or something.
Jeez.
Not that long, is it? It might be 15. I don't know, but for his wisdom, it's not very long. So that's even more impressive.
What does he do for a living again?
Oh, I don't know.
It's something to sort of like, I don't know, biological sciences or something, isn't it? I'm pretty sure, because he's got a very good understanding, hasn't he?
I thought you said he was a glass blower.
Wow, where's that come from?
Don't know.
You thought I said
Where
that?
did it? Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah, that's news to me.
I thought, okay.
Mate, he might well be a glass blower. I didn't know that.
I think
that's
afterwards he said he probably
living, isn't it?
Hey, it is, but it's a talent that's probably dying out, isn't it? I imagine machines do all the glass blowing now.
Yeah, I've never considered it.
Fair enough.
What have you learnt most, mate, on the podcast? What have you learned, do you think, from the guests? So rather than your favourite one.
God, I don't know. What have I learnt? Probably loads. Stumped. Nothing's springing out at me, but that's not to say I haven't learnt. I'm sure I've learnt a lot. I don't know, mate. What about you? Is there anything that you can think of?
I think the most sort of educational ones for me, I guess, was with the Sean Harrison ones. Because he's just done it for literally a lifetime now, isn't he?
Yeah.
And everything he said, just little things, like he's just talking about sort of like fishing in silkweed, and just something like how he just said, just crimping the barb on the hook. Always go barbless in silkweed because it just gets trapped in the weed, and it's just something like that I would never have thought of. And it's so obvious, and it's just his experience, and people like episodes like that. Someone like Sean's not really in carp media a great deal anymore, is he? Actually, sort of like, it's something like a lot of like the young guys who are coming into fishing, sort of, they listen to those podcasts, they'd learn shed loads.
Yeah, that was interesting. And then obviously it makes you think about, well, like if you've got like a D, does that inhibit it as well? Should you just go for a hair, or should you have a shorter hair? And it makes you think. But yeah, that I agree with you on that. That made me think. I never thought of that. And I can't say I've fished in silkweed that much, but it's like that's something I'll definitely use. I'll definitely like crimp down the barb if I've got barbed. Sorry. Yeah, that was a good one. Sean's just, as well as that, you talk to people that fish where he fishes. I know he does Grenville. He does some other waters as well. Speaking to them, they're like, yeah, he's very well respected. He catches fish from everywhere. He does well. And like you say, he's been at it for a long time. I think he's, accumulated many hours on the bank. He's not an armchair carper, that's for sure. He's out, trying different stuff. And I think he's just got a great mind for it. Yeah, fascinating guy.
Yeah. So that's that one, really, isn't it? It's
Definitely. Oh, I've got to mention Fennel Hudson as well. That was interesting about the wild carp. I think I learnt a lot in that episode as well.
Again, it's an under the radar one, isn't it? Because that was actually for guys who just are really into carp, and I say study them, for people who can just stand at a lake and just watch fish all day. That was a fascinating podcast, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's not been one of the most sort of like the popular, most downloaded ones, but I think one of the most interesting for sure.
No, it wasn't that popular with the downloads, but yeah, very interesting. And it's just a bit of a different tone to our other podcasts, I guess. You know what I mean? Yeah, I like that. I like Fennel as well. He's a good guy. I bought his book. He's got quite a few books. He does his journal series, but he's got one on wild carp, which is a book on wild carp. That's definitely worth picking up as well. Yeah, very, very good. Right, next question is from Esoxian, which is our friend from Scotland, and damn it, I've forgotten his name. Oh, I'm sorry, buddy. He's someone that's messaged us a bit. Left us a really insanely nice review. Who is that, Pete? You know the guy.
Well, again, some of the reviews were just actually quite sort of like heartwarming. They were so good.
Yeah.
So nice. It was crazy. I know
Scottish
who
guy.
you mean. Yeah. Ian?
Oh.
India. So, yeah, something like that, isn't it?
Indiana, but Ian.
I think
isn't
it is,
it?
yeah.
We'll just stop now. We're embarrassing ourselves. But yes, anyway, he's put bait, of course. If you have implemented any ideas from previous casts in your fishing, similar question to John actually. Have we implemented any ideas? For me, Dean mentioned the orange oil and oils for life in general, and as a result of that I ordered a lot of oils several times from Oils for Life, and I've tested lots of different oils. I mean, I was into essential oils massively before that anyway, but yeah, I looked into that, and then that made me look at some other citrus based oils as well, which I've done quite well on. So that was definitely something that kind of has changed my bait this year. What about you, Pete?
Again, I mean, the orange oil is a funny one because it's something I'd literally just had researched. I'd spoken to somebody online and they'd used it. And do you know what, actually? I think if sort of like going back through it all, I think actually Dean had put them onto it long before, obviously, like the podcast. And I'd spoken to them and they'd sort of like suggested it to me. So, I mean, the orange essential oil is something I've been sort of interested in for a little while. But mate, it's become like a cult following. It's remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah, Bath have released it.
I know, it's hilarious. Like, just from our sort of podcast, I can't believe it. But mate,
they might have done it anyway, to be fair.
They might well have, yeah. But yeah, coincidental.
Go on like the groups. It's mentioned quite a bit, isn't it? These different groups.
Yeah.
Facebook groups, bait groups, and stuff. So interesting.
Yeah, and I think, like you say, Oils for Life have had a lot of carp anglers purchasing little bottles of essential oils.
Yeah, should have been on commission with that one. Yeah, they don't do everything, and some of their oils, I think, like could be better. But on the whole, pretty bloody good, aren't they? And they're very very well priced. They're all like batch coded as well, which I like. They've got the dates on them. They just do it right. Yeah, I really like them actually. So yeah, that was another one courtesy of Dean. Good old Dean. I went to see Dean about a month ago. Went up to his bait factory. Got some bait from him. It was good to see the setup he's got there. It's as you'd imagine it. It's just very Dean-like. And he's got a good operation going there. Got to spy on some of the ingredients that he's using.
Ah, cool.
And he's definitely putting the good stuff in his baits, I can tell you that. Yeah.
He's How have your test your test fish, your tank fish, your pond fish, have you been feeding them on it?
Yeah, love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah,
and
they do.
This isn't just a plug for Dean because we want him back on the podcast. You actually said to me you would. I think it almost annoyed you, like how much they liked it, like from the off.
We wouldn't sugarcoat someone just to get someone on the just to get someone on the podcast. But no, genuinely, they love it. I've been feeding fish near the snags as well. It's good. He's got a good bait. I know people are going to message and ask, so I'll just tell you now. I got the HXB, which has got a high amount of refined milks in it. And there was a reason why I wanted that, because I think it's just very different from what everyone else is using on that venue. So I wanted something with decent amount of protein in, but more to the point, I wanted a high amount of refined milk proteins in there. and that HXB definitely does that. Dean was really good actually, and kind of divulged quite a lot of the recipe to me, which was very decent of him. Obviously, I wouldn't repeat it on here, and that was really nice for him to do that. And it's doing well. It's a great bait. If you are looking for a bait, I would really recommend Dean. Especially I like to go to people's factories and see what they're doing. I think it's eye-opening. I still use Kenny Gates bait as well. I need to go and get some more actually. Both of those guys do really, really top-notch bait, in my opinion. Right, next question is from Sociable Primate. What a great name. Would be interested on how you both start a new water in regards to finding spots / target areas. Good question. Don't know if we've covered that before, have we? Don't think so.
No, mate. Sorry, to be honest with you, the signal dropped out there. You're going to have to repeat that. It's going to be a painful edit.
Yeah. Social Primate said, would be interested on how you both start a new water in regards to finding spots / target areas. So he wants to know, look, when we go into a new water, how do we find out where we're going to fish, what areas, what spots, etc.
Do you know what, mate? The one thing which I'm really bad at doing, and I really should do, my friend Jordan, I fish with quite a bit, he will talk to people and talk to people and talk to people and find out as much information as he can. Whereas I guess, I don't want to say I'm like introvert. When I get talking to people, I can talk all day about fishing, but it's just not sort of like my style, I guess. But I think it's something I should really, really do more, is just a bit of sort of groundwork and get talking to other anglers. There's part of me that thinks it's not like it's cheating, but it's part of me that wants to unlock that code, I guess, myself and learn it all myself. But a little bit of local knowledge goes a long way. It really does, especially if you want to do something a little bit different. Maybe you can certainly sort of pit yourself against other anglers if you know what their approach is and what they're doing. So that would be my number one bit of advice, which I'm learning at the minute, is which I don't do enough of, and it's something I need to do more, is talk to people. I don't know. I think with a it's very rare I visit new waters at the minute, I have to say. I'm sort of fishing the same old waters I've been fishing for a number of years, so it's not a very inspiring sort of question for me. What about you, mate?
Yeah.
Legwork in the winter months?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I want to go and grab a beer, so can you keep on talking for a while? I was hoping you were going to be...
Yeah, okay, mate.
I was hoping... I've got a few things. Yeah, I think... Yeah, I've got a few things to contribute to this, because I have fished a few new waters over the last year or two. So, yeah, I reckon I'm good for that. Pete, just tell him something. I need to go and grab a beer.
Okay.
Keep them going.
It's going to get exciting.
Keep them warm for me. Go on.
I'm ready. So this water I'm fishing now, for example, this was going to be my target water this year. It's not quite panned out as I'd hoped for various reasons, but for the winter months, so I don't know a great deal about the water. I fished it a little bit last year. It's normally fairly busy. It's a kind of water when if you get sort of 3 anglers, 4 anglers on it, that it is busy, and you wouldn't really fancy your chances. You don't want to fish it too much. So I didn't learn masses about the water last summer from the few sessions that I did. So this year, January time, I really spent a bit of time on the water, walking, watching, when there was nobody else about, just going around with my marker rod and just sussing out the depths, finding little areas that you'd be confident in fishing, and just planning it out, really. So like I said a little bit earlier, use the winter months to your advantage if you can, because that's a time to really sort of have a good lead around and learn the water. And just watching, really. You've got to find out where the fish are. And if you can spend time there and you can watch and you learn, sort of look for signs of fish, you can learn their patrol routes. You can learn sort of where they're holding up in the daytime. You can sort of you can almost sort of start to surmise or theorize where they sort of hold up in the daytime, or where you think they're going to move out, whether they're coming out of snags through the daytime or through the evenings, through the night with the little patrol routes, that sort of thing. I can hear you crashing and banging, mate. You returned?
I'm back now.
Boom.
Saving you. I can hear you drawing that out. Yeah, I'm back.
Go on.
Yeah, no, it's all good, valid stuff, isn't it? I mean, ultimately, it comes like you've said, mate. You got to find the fish, right? You have to find it. I understand why you're asking that question. It's a good question. It's all valid, and I don't think you would. But I wouldn't take the advice of someone that's like, oh, always look at the lilies, or always look in the, it's go and find out where those fish go on that venue, right? There is no supplementation, if that's the right word, for actually finding where the fish go. If you can find out where they go at what time of the day, or even what time of the year, or different things like that, then obviously that is all the better. But ultimately, you got to find those fish. And that's something I think the older I get, the more unhappy I am to cast out if I don't know, if I have any doubt that there's a fish there. It's just that important. You have to find those fish. If you can't find them, then at least if you know that venue well, you know where they tend to go, you have an idea of where they're going to be given this time of day or the weather conditions, etc., etc. Obviously use that as backup, but yeah, just find the fish. Ultimately, that is number one. Then, of course, once you've found them, you need to make sure you can present to them. So, case in point, I fish really weedy waters, so I can't just be going out chucking a short rig on a heavy inline just to wherever I want, because 9 times out of 10, if not more, I'm not going to be presented. So you've got to present to the fish, obviously. So when you say about finding your spots, sure, if it's a weedy venue, you're going to want to find a clear spot most of the time if you want to present the rig. But in fact, a lot of the time I don't even do that. I'll happily, the amount of time I just fish a single hook bait on a patrol route in heavy weed, that's something I'm very confident in. I do that a lot. Don't think you need a clear spot and you need to bait it, etc., to catch fish, because you don't. And I think particularly if you're into bait making, you can stack that in your favor. Like, I'm working on a Balakan hook bait at the minute, which is seeming very promising, which we might bring out. And I wouldn't make that into a feed bait. Or if I was making this Balakan feed bait, I'd make it very differently to how I am a single hook bait. So don't think that you're not going to be able to, pull them in and track them, is what I'm saying. Other than that, I mean, something that I've had to think about more and more in recent years, now I'm fishing up on the water park and in the Cotswolds and around the Cotswolds, is other anglers, right? And this is like something that's very hard for me, because I've fished very quiet venues before. Quite often I'll be the only person fishing, sometimes not even supposed to be fishing, maybe. So it's very different coming up to, say, the water park, where there might be quite a few other anglers on, and certain swims seem to always have someone in there and areas get switched up. So now I bring that into consideration. So this spring, coming out of winter into the spring, actually started pre-baiting an area that I thought, well, when everyone descends onto the lake, and bearing in mind we're locked down, we couldn't do nights, I knew that date, I can't remember what date it was now, but I knew the lake would get real busy. I was thinking, the fish are going to push into this area, right? Just from looking at the lake and just kind of sussing it all out. So I kind of planned ahead and thought, it's going to get busy. The fish are going to push out here. Probably no one's going to fish in this area. Turns out I was wrong, but anyway. So I'll bait this area up, So I went about baiting that place at least 3 times a week, hour and a half all-round drive, and fish that way. And I know you could say, well, you're not finding the fish there, are you, Sam? No, the other way of doing it is creating a situation where the fish are going to frequent there. But you can't just pick a random spot on the lake and think, I'll start putting a load of bait in there regularly and the fish will turn up. It's not like Rome, build it and they'll come. It's got to be an area where they get in, or they at least patrol along or move through, in order for you to create that situation. So yeah, I feel like I'm waffling, but to round it up, find out where the fish are moving. I think Pete said that as well. But also think about other anglers. Like that, if you want to get something going on a lake, and that's what I'm all about, I want to get areas going, I want to keep bait going in, then you have to factor in other anglers, right? So like now, and this is sad, and I suppose I'm fishing against the anglers as well as the fish now, but a lot of the times I'm looking at the lake differently. I'm running everything through this filter of like, well, how's that going to be affected by other anglers? So I'm looking for those spots where I don't think anyone would be fishing. I'm trying to catch the fish and bait for the fish and get them feeding and get them confident in an area where they don't get pressured, So I'm constantly thinking about that side of things in my angling. So if you're on a lake that gets busy, I would definitely bear that in mind as well. Because unfortunately we're fishing against other anglers as well these days, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Even busy down here, mate, these days.
Yeah. It's a sign of the times, I suppose, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, do you know who's just messaged?
Go on.
Speak of the devil and he will appear. Stephen White.
Ooh.
Sent me a photo. Right. Okay. Poor Stephen. Embarrass him now. This is out of the blue. It's sent me a meme. It says, I like men who take risks. There's a picture of a pretty blonde girl. And the guy says, I cast out without a PVA nugget on my hook.
That is carpy humour right there, mate.
Banter. Yeah. By the way, that's out in the blue. We don't message each other at all. Yeah. Right. Hopefully that answers your question, Social Primate. Yeah. Next one. Trev Roper, new pop-ups. Next one. I'm not reading that out. Oh, yes. Actually, I'll come on to that in a minute. Before that, Richard Cheeseman, which, by the way, was the name of my dentist when I grew up. Mr. Cheeseman. Probably not him. Bait application, how and when to bait, how much, etc. Salt application in early spring, pre-spawning, etc. So baiting up and using salt. I'll pass it to Pete, but first off, I'm going to respectfully not talk about the salt thing. I know a lot of people are into putting salt in the water. I know this is something that John Baker's really passionate about, and I think we're going to get John back on, and I think this is something that he wants to talk about. He feels strongly about it. I'm not saying I totally agree with him, but kind of out of respect, I'll leave that topic be. Bait application, how and when and how much. Pete, you don't bait up much, do you, mate, these days?
Do you know what? No, not enough. I just struggle for time to find time to get to the lake. It sounds ridiculous, but yeah, that's it really. I think recently I'm fishing for a bite a lot of the time, and I'm quite conscious that I don't want to fish over a lot of bait, because a lot of the time I am fishing for a bite. Which I've been rolling my own bait, so it's actually been a bit of a blessing, I guess, that I've not been able to make it out to bait up much, because it saved me having to manufacture loads, as we all know. But yeah, for me, at the moment, I'm fishing for a bite, so I've literally set little traps, and I've got a handful, not even a handful really. I'm probably fishing sort of 5 or 6 baits around each rod, and that's sort of how I'm approaching it at the minute. I'm just here overnight. I drop on in the nights I want to go. I've got a good idea of where to fish patrol, and I'm just setting little traps and hopefully to try and catch one. On the salt topic, mate, I mean, I think the easiest thing to do is it's quite popular, isn't there? There's a lot of information on it out there. A lot of people do it, and a lot of people probably would say they have sort of like good results from doing it. But there is like an ethics thing, isn't there, regarding the amount that people put in the water, which is, I'm assuming, why you don't want to sort of bring light to it on the podcast, because you don't want to encourage it, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, it is what it is. As far as baiting up goes, I mean, you said that you don't do enough of it, so I'm guessing, yeah, by default, it's something that you feel that you should be doing.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure. I mean, we've spoken about it lots of times on the podcast, but if you can bait up regularly, you're doing yourself all kinds of favours, aren't you?
Yeah, 100%.
One of the
100%.
big problems I have is I'll bait up sort of like 1 or 2 swims, and then there is no worse feeling when you get to the lake and the spots that you've been baiting, there's an angler just sat there. No worse feeling. I've been getting that a lot recently.
You have?
Yeah, this year, mate, it's a funny little water where I'm fishing, but I mean, people put in a lot of time and effort here, an awful lot. And I just start to get a bit cagey when I'm baiting up the same sort of areas as other people, and
yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, you're saying about just fishing for one bite at a time. I'm the same. Like, I don't fish for hits of fish or anything like that. I mean, just doesn't happen. But you're fishing over 5 or 6 baits. Is that what you said? That is a tiny amount.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very small amount.
Yeah.
That's like back in the old days, we'd use that amount.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I've sort of reverted back to it. I really have. Mate, I'm here for maximum. I mean, my rods are in the water today, like on this trip, for probably 9 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I think the fish see an awful lot of bait here. I think they ignore it. I know they ignore it. They can ignore it for days and weeks. You see baits going rotten where they've been ignored. You see baits floating up where they've been ignored. And I just doing my own sort of little thing, and I'm just setting little traps and being a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, I think we used to fish like that a lot, didn't we? Sort of seven baits over your hook bait kind of thing. Yeah.
I mean, these are pressured
Definitely.
fish, and they see a shitload of bait.
Have you got nuisance species in there?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, but yeah, I do.
Are you fishing with big baits, double baits? What are you doing with that?
Well, I'd say I've got a pop up on one rod today, and I'm fishing tiger nut as a hook bait on the other rod. So it alleviates the nuisance species issue. But, I mean, my bait, they're pretty soluble. I know that they break down quite quickly as well. But that doesn't sort of concern me, because I just think as they leave enough attraction in the water for the period of time that I'm here. Yeah, I don't know. I've got a feeling now, sort of like whatever I say, you're going to be like, but what about this? What about this? You've not thought about this.
Well, I don't know why you think that, mate. No, I was just interested. Interested in your thoughts about it. That's all. I'm not saying it. I'm not poo-pooing it in the slightest. I mean, definitely. I mean, I said earlier, I fish with singles a lot of the time. You know, I'm not giving it the big one about you got to fish over a load of bait like a macho thing. Definitely don't. In fact, winter, my favourite thing is just like boilie crumb, tiny little PVA bag, 1 boilie in it, some liquids and a hook bait, and that's it. So no, definitely, you don't need a load of bait. So no, everything's got a time and a place, isn't it? And it's knowing how to do that. Like, I mean, I don't fish over loads of bait usually. Sometimes I'll fish over a lot of bait if I think it's right. Like, I'm happy to stove it in if I think it's the right thing to do, or I'm happy to fish singles. You know, I suppose it's just getting a feel for it, isn't it? And obviously we get it wrong. I get it wrong certainly. And that's just part of angling, isn't it? You're talking about going back to what you used to do, in as much as like 5 baits. I'll tell you what I've been doing a lot recently on my stalking is just scretting pellets in the edge, couple of handfuls, different spots, walking, just like you used to do. Yeah, just literally just scretting pellet. Nice, simple. It's not that cheap now, is it? I was going to say cost effective, but scretting, you're looking at a good 35, 38 quid a sack. But yeah, going back to the scretting, fishing the old pellet, I quite like it.
Yeah, I mean you're sort of blessed with crystal clear water as well, and the fish have been loving it, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely. I must say though, I've been feeding Dean's bait as well in the edge and just watching them in the snags or just out of the snags. And yeah, definitely they've been been down on the bait, which is nice to see. But yeah, just good old scratting. I think, sometimes we can get so caught up in different baits and things like that, and really something like a good quality pellet is pretty hard to beat. You can have you all singing, all dancing, boilie if you want, but obviously it's not breaking down as quick as a pellet. It's not getting those feed signals out, and a good quality pellet, there's different ones. I mean, I wouldn't bother with these coarse ones, these weak pellets I call them, but I mean they've got a lot a lot of amino acids, a lot of nucleotides, a lot of organic acids in there, and they break down quick, they pump out well. Carp really like them. And yeah, just keep it simple sometimes. As I said, I'm developing this Balakan hook bait as well, which I'm kind of using in conjunction with the pellet as well. Just even though they're very different, Balakan and different ingredients I'm putting in different from the pellet, but in my mind at least it complements well with what's going on there. And yeah, do you know what as well? Something I'm going back to trying to do is just have a little bit more fun when I go fishing. I know that sounds odd. Of course, we all go for pleasure, don't we? But just kind of, I don't know how to sum it up. Just taking it a little bit less seriously, I guess. And just going out and having fun and just enjoying being out as well. I think both me and you, Pete, our work has like got dramatically busier, isn't it? I'm just really appreciating the few hours fishing that I get, just being out in nature, away from all of your responsibilities and the long list of things that you always have to do that never seems to go down, and just getting out, having fun, messing about with different bits and bobs and bait and stuff. Yeah, I've been really enjoying it.
Yeah, you see, for me recently as well, like, I guess I can sort of mention on the podcast, a friend of mine's found an abandoned lake in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by woodland, and it's pretty deep, and it's just, I mean, this place has been untouched for a long time, and went down with him the other night and checked it out. Some of the fish in there, mate, are just absolutely stunning. They're not very big fish, sort of like upper doubles was maybe the biggest I saw, and that would have been the biggest by sort of like a substantial amount, just sort of low double fish, a few singles, but they're jet black. Lots of commons, a few little mirrors in there, but it's something that's got me really excited. Just, it's the unknown, isn't it? It looks pretty deep, choked full of weed, quite a good head of fish, to be honest. And yeah, and they're just not fished for. And that has really just sort of like got me enthusiastic again. That's sort of like that little sort of like the unknown, the excitement that there's no fish in there, like named fish. It's just, yeah, sort of doing it for me at the minute. So I'm really looking forward to spending a few days down there. Although I've got to say, mate, it got like a bit weird. It's sort of like, I guess it's like an old quarry. And it's really like mature woodland all around it, and there's a bit of a cliff. This sides is sheer and it's quite high. There's only sort of like one or two areas you could maybe fish from, and we sort of like climbed up this, like, it's like a thick sort of wooded side, and you get to the top and it's just like just at the moment it's all covered in bluebells. It's beautiful. You can see over the whole lake. And then we're sort of like, there's like a little fire pit there where someone's been having a fire. So we're a bit like, oh, right, like someone's visiting here. And this is on top of like a cliff top. And there's like some weird sort of like cooking pots and stuff, mate. Like, they're not something like you'd find in a kitchen. These are sort of like rusty old things which have been sort of like stored away. And you sort of turn around to it, mate, and there's like a big fucking dead like goat's head, and there's like 3 or 4 different skulls. So that's sort of like, it was like a Baphomet sort of thing. It was weird. And we were sort of like went back down the hill, and we just sort of like feeling. My mate had put in some floaters. We were watching them sort of like drift across the top, and the fish were coming up and sort of taking them on the end of the wind. We were just having a good watch, and then we felt like it's sort of like we had like a car door shut or something, which wasn't possible. We sort of like turned around and went back, and then there was just 2 dead rabbits on the path. Like someone had just shot them and left them there for us. It was the most weird, bizarre thing.
Well, the rabbits were. Did you walk past the rabbits on the way there, sort of thing?
Definitely not.
Well, so you walked in on one path. There was no rabbits. When you walked out, there was 2 dead rabbits.
Yeah, and like we'd walked the path like numerous times to go from like one little area you could fish from to the other little area, and the car's sort of like not far from there, if that makes sense. And yeah, there was just, but the thing is as well, they're like tiny rabbits, like the smallest rabbits you've ever seen. And it was like there's not been sat there for long. Like someone had just put them there. I was like looking up in the trees, like looking for buzzards or something. If a buzzard had like dropped it, most bizarre thing.
Weird. With the rabbits next to each other? Or
Yes.
Like spread apart?
No, completely next to one another. Very weird. I know.
Spooky, mate. You might have a ghost story for us when you do your first night.
Yeah. No, I'm not doing I wouldn't do a night there on my own, mate. Christ. I'm already freaked out. Yeah.
He's such a pussy.
But the fishing side of things, it's exciting. But I think there might be someone living there, mate. There's like derelict buildings. It's a little bit Blair Witchy. But yeah.
I'd 100% do a night there, mate.
I'll invite you
I'm
down,
waiting for
mate.
my invite. Gladly. I'll do a night with you.
Yeah.
No worries.
But yeah, how are we doing on the questions, mate? Did we expire them? We got a few more.
I think we've got some more. Dan Tibbott, or Tybot, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Dan's big on his pronunciation. He's saying, basically he's saying we need to start saying put or put instead of put or put. So I clearly think this is me that does this. Let me get his messages up. Do you know what I'm on about, Pete, or not?
No idea, mate.
So we pronounce put incorrectly. I think that's what he's saying. He says, one of you two always says put when talking, making up baits instead of put. There's a difference there, apparently.
I got nothing to say. I don't know. I think it's you.
He is
Whenever
confused.
you say putts, don't you?
Yeah, it's not put then, is it? Is it put?
I think it's put. Yeah, you're playing golf, mate.
Oh.
You're putting.
I'm putting. Yeah, well, sorry. That's me. Yeah, it's obviously me, isn't it?
Maybe.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, put. Put just sounds very, I don't know, it's a bit.
Taken on board, though. We took it on board, haven't we?
Taking it on board. Yeah, thanks for that, Dan. Right. Next question is... Oh, no, Dan's got one, actually. So the guy that's just, been taking the piss out of how I talk, he's got a question, and it is, here's one for you. Sourcing liquid squid liver. It's impossible now for some reason. Yeah, it is. British Aquafeeds have just brought out a squid. I think it's a hydrolysate.
It is, yeah. It's not squid liver, though.
No, it's not squid liver. I think he's on about the powdered squid liver, if you remember that. which there's been a lot of. I mean, if he's on about the Nash one, I think that was actually a type of cheese powder, wasn't it? Rather than squid. It had fuck all to do with squid.
You see, I didn't know that.
Did you
It's
not?
not something I ever used.
Yeah. There is a type of squid powder which I've got, and who knows, maybe we'll release that, so I probably won't say too much on it. But yeah, I think he's on about the powder. Yeah, you had the squid adarome as well, didn't you? Which is no longer available. So yeah, there is a powder that is available. You have to import it. It's fucking expensive, but we might release it soon. So there we go. That's probably as much as I'll say on that.
That's it. I'll tell you what, mate.
You ain't.
Go on. Sorry.
You ain't going to be buying it. You ain't going to be buying it unless you've got a lot of money and you're happy to buy it in a large amount. So I don't think we're doing a disservice by not mentioning it, to be honest. But no, the squid liver powder, which is what he's specifically asked about, I don't know where you can get that. I don't think you can get it anymore. What were you going to say, mate?
You mentioned cheese powder, didn't you? And I tell you what, I'll put this out to the listeners. If anybody's got any suggestions of an interesting cheese powder or a good cheese powder supplier, drop us a message, because it's something I've been interested in recently, and I'm just interested in knowing what's out there, really. You've mentioned one, haven't you, Sam?
Yeah, Dave Mallins is supposed to be good.
Yeah, I need to check it out.
I had a blue cheese powder years ago that was potent, really potent, and I can't remember where it was from.
It wasn't. I remember you used to use like the Richworth paste powders, weren't they? It wasn't that, was it?
No, not that. No, yeah, I remember those. Those Richworth paste powders were awesome. For those of you who don't remember, there was these little pots, white pots, and there was like powder stuff, and you mixed it just with water, and you made a paste. Yeah, Richworth had a cheese one. I used to rate that, didn't I? I used to like that.
Yeah.
Good stalking bait. I still like pastes. I still like using pastes. I think they're underused, underrated.
That's it. I used to use the CC Moore blue cheese powder, going back quite a few years now, and I've just recently picked some up, and it doesn't seem as potent as I remember. Anyway, I remember it used to be really, really strong. Sort of when you inhale it, sort of quite deep, it would sort of really hit the back of your nose.
Yeah,
I don't sort of get that anymore. I don't know if I've just sort of got a faded memory now, or I don't know. It's not something you come across a lot now, is it?
No, it's out of favour, isn't it? To be honest, cheese. It's a great. It's a good additive if you can get a good cheese powder. Yeah, it can definitely be a good thing. I mean, yeah, we need to. Perhaps that should be a goal of ours, mate. This year, let's get our hands on some proper cheese powder. It will be available because I mean, it was always from the food industry anyway.
Yep.
It's not like it was an angling thing, so perhaps we should hunt it out. Yeah, but if anyone knows good cheese powder, yeah, let us know. Help us out. Anyway, hopefully that covers that question. Next, we've got Jack Harkness. Hello, Sam and Pete. I've got a couple of questions for you to maybe answer on the podcast. First one is, I get one night a week. I've fished my favourite boilie for the past few weeks and not had a sniff on it. The only bait I've had a take on and lost one was one of your toucan pop-ups. Now here, there's another local bait firm whose bait has caught the biggest fish. It's not as good as ours, I'll tell you that now. I'm just joking. Another local bait firm has caught the biggest fish in the lake twice in the space of a month. Do I follow the trend and switch to that, or do I go the other route? And I was thinking of buying some base mix off John Baker and rolling my own boilies. We'll come on to the second question after. Let's answer that one first. To It's a tough question to answer. You're basically saying, do I go with the bait that the lake is seeing lots of and it's catching the fish and all that good stuff, or do I buck the trend and do I go in the opposite direction? Similar to me, actually, I mentioned this earlier about why I wanted to use Dean's HXB bait, which is his high milk protein bait. I wanted to do that because I wanted to be different from everyone else, but that is me. That's how I like to fish. Both routes can do well, and this is not gonna be the answer you want, so I apologize. But I mean, on one hand, look, if there's loads of a certain bait going in and it's catching the fish and the fish are seeing a lot of it, that bait is gonna work. It's just simple fact. It's gonna work. The fish recognize it. They're gonna be readily eating it. If they've been seeing it for long enough, it's almost they're gonna be treating it like a natural food source, right? Although they know they'll get caught on it, but it's something that's not foreign to them. They're on it. They obviously like it. You can make a good case for why the hell wouldn't you use that bait? On the flip side, if you want to catch the fish, if there's some fish that don't really come out, they don't get caught very often, maybe you want to look at changing bait. And again, just to go back to Stephen White episode, he made some really interesting points about male fish, etc., and their preference or potential preference. So maybe go down that route. I would say it depends on the venue. What's going to work best? No, there's no way of knowing, is there? You got to trial it. Generally, for me, if I had to choose, I always go against the grain. Like Fish the Water Park, loads of people use Baitworks. I'm sure it's a great bait. I can get it for £7 a kilo, which is a decent price, right? Because I'm local. But I don't use it because I want to be very different. So that's me. That's my personal preference. That being said, there's some very good anglers that I know. Whatever water they'll target, they will just get on the going bait, just add to it, keep going in, and that's good angling, because they're just jumping on something that works. It's each to their own. Me personally, I like to go against the grain. I like to find that thing that's just different, and I don't even know if it's that I think it's more effective. I think it's more that I just get more pleasure that way, maybe.
It's on your terms,
what's
isn't
your Yeah, maybe. What's your take on that, Pete?
Like similar to you, I don't necessarily like to go against the grain. But like I said there, it's on your terms. Part of it for me and the enjoyment of doing it is I want to sort of catch them on my terms and doing sort of like for the moment I'm on my bait. And I want to sort of like catch them on my bait. My advice to, I've forgotten his name, would probably be, if I was to give someone else the advice, would probably be just to go on the going bait. Especially if that fish which you want has got a history of coming out on it. If that's your target and you want that fish, then I think if you get on a going bait, you're just helping yourself. It's it's a piece of the puzzle already there for you. You can just focus on targeting it.
Yeah. And by the way, there's no harm in doing both. Like, you can fish with more than one bait, can't you? Mm-hmm. You can mix them up 50-50 or whatever kind of percentage you want to do. You can mix one bait, one area, one the other, or you can mix them together. You can do whatever you want, can't you? There's no rules. Mm-hmm. So, hard question to answer. I think it probably sounds like, Pete, you'd err towards getting on the going bait, and I'd probably err towards getting something different going in. Yeah. But I would say as well, if you... I don't know if he's new to rolling baits, but he talked about sort of buying some of John Baker's base mix and doing his own. Do that anyway, because it's a whole... You learn a lot, don't you? You learn a lot about bait and just doing your own little thing and doing your own tweaks, and you'll probably have a little bit of fun doing that. And if you catch one on that bait, it's going to mean a hell of a lot more to you than just jumping on the going bait. I know that much. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And and it's probably worth saying, if you're gonna go down the route of doing something different, right? If everyone's catching and putting in sticky baits krill, don't think I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna get ABS Hydra krill. What's Jeff Bauer's version of it? Do you know what I mean? You're like, don't just put like a different branding, but that's ultimately a similar thing. If they're all coming out on a red fish meal, Don't just go and get Baitworks Atlantic Heat, because guess what? It's a red fish meal. You know, it's a spicy fish meal. They're going to be... they're not the same, obviously, and of course the fish will be able to tell the difference. But I would go totally opposite. So my current lake that I'm fishing at the minute, that I'm changing, I've got a ticket on somewhere in Oxfordshire that I'm coming on to. But at the moment where I'm fishing, like, everyone is fishing with fish meals. Spicy fish meals, crustacean type fish meals. So I'm just going the total opposite. There's a few nut baits going in, little bits and pieces, but no one's really fishing with a bait that's high in milk proteins. Certainly not this high, nowhere near it. So, you know, I guess I'm saying, if you're going to think I'm going to go the opposite route, make sure it genuinely is opposite and the bait that you're using is totally different to the other stuff that's going in. That's all I'd say.
Yeah, sorted. And there was a second part to the question?
Yeah, there was, yeah. The second question is more aimed at Sam, because I imagine Posh Pete has his swim pre-raked by his butler. Is there a decent way of getting your line through a weed bed, as in I'm fishing to the back of it? Though, if that makes sense. Thanks, guys. And this is from Jack Harkness. So basically, he's fishing the opposite side of the weed bed. He's got, obviously, his line trailing through the weed bed. He's like, he wants to know, blah, 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 blah. Is there a decent way of getting your line through a weed bed? Well, you don't want to get it through there, dude, because if you can somehow bed that line in there, guess what? Your indication's going to be absolutely shit. So you want that line laying on top of that weed. So it's a tricky one. I mean, it's almost, you know, a more of a neutral buoyancy line, or you wouldn't say a floating line per se. None of them really float, do they? But like a real heavy sinking mono's, it's not gonna fully bed in. It's probably gonna lay over it nicely. I use braid in weed because I just think it's superior for many reasons. I use a sinking braid. I mean, if I was energetic to do it, if in that scenario, I'd want a non-sinking braid, so it lies over the top. Like, you don't want to be burying your line within the weed. For, as I said, your indication's going to be shit, and guess what? You're just probably going to pull fish into the weed. It's just, you don't want that. You want your line out of the weed. Now, I'm presuming that you're worried that it's going to be very obvious to the fish. It's just something you got to get over, mate. It's something you really need to get over. As I said, I use braid. I mean, look, there's loads of, like, there's weed everywhere. A lot of it's Canadian in these lakes that I'm fishing. I just marker pen up the braid so it's not like a solid line, because I use the Gardner, I don't know what it's called. It's the Gardner sinking braid. Once that's weathered a little bit, it's bright, like it sticks out like a sore thumb in the water. And it's just this like long beam towards where I'm fishing. So I just get a marker pen. I get a brown pen and a green pen, and I go along and marker it up just to break up that line, right? And I think that does wonders. I've seen fish move over the weed bed, over my line, and I'm sure they're not spooking off of it, and I'm sure they would do if it wasn't marker penned up. So that's something that I would definitely look at doing. I think, personally, if you're fishing in weed, you should be fishing with braid anyway. So get yourself some braid, and then, yeah, use a marker pen, disguise it that way, and just kind of get over it. But, yeah, don't try and settle your line into the weed. You want it on top of the weed, for sure.
Do you know what, mate? I know I could be talking well out of time because I've just had this on for a bit of background listening. There was a Thinking Tackle podcast, and they did sort of like a rig one. And it was, I don't know, Danny Fairbrass was there, and I've forgotten who the other guests were. I think there were sort of 3 or 4 of them, and they're all discussing different ways they were fishing. And I'm certain that Danny Fairbrass was talking, saying that I think when he was fishing welly, and he was fishing sort of straight into the weed, fishing chods. And this, I guess, is a complete contradiction to what you said. He used to fish these like rod tips in the water, like butts in the air, rod tips in the water, and he'd stick a chod out and wind right down, like bowstring tight, and pull the lines, pull it as far down into the weed as possible, so it pulled it and compressed it all. And he would leave it for however long, and then he would just slacken off completely, like take the bail arm off and then just let everything slacken out. Just interesting, different take on it.
This is why Danny Fairbrass doesn't catch as much as me. Next question. No, I think that's I mean, with all respect to Danny Fairbrass, I'm only teasing. Obviously, I'm joking. But no, I wouldn't do that at all. I think that's a stupid idea. He pulls it down tight.
This is what's worrying
then loosens
me.
off.
When I've said this, this was just background listening, but it sort of stuck out to me for those reasons as well. I was thinking, like, that's a bit sort of different.
But I mean, as he loosens off, that weed is not staying compressed. It depends. Look, we say weed like it's this one thing. It depends what type of weed it is, doesn't it? But I can't think of a weed that would stay compressed after you've fully loosened off.
Yeah. I'll just go back and listen to it. I could have got it in a completely wrong context, mate.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, interesting. My swims are pre-raked, mate, so I don't have this problem.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right, moving on. Next question is from Weathertight Roofing. Again, I think long-term listener. I'd like to listen to more regarding base mix formulation, what roles certain ingredients play, protein, carbs, vits, binders, attractors, etc. Maybe give the listeners a forum mix. Was it BM2? Which he's talking about the old cart forum. I'm loving the podcast, by the way. I remember I replied to him, and I think this deserves its own episode. Yeah. So I think we've had this question quite a few times. I say quite a few, probably 15 or 20. We'll have to do an episode where, I don't know whether we just do it, me or you, Pete, or whether we get someone else on, but we'll come up with a recipe and we'll try and highlight and help people navigate through it all, because I understand. I mean, we started rolling bait a long time ago, but if you think back, it is quite daunting, isn't it? It's like, well, I want this and that in, but what are they going to do in the bait? You could have a list of things you want in. Doesn't mean it's going to roll. Doesn't mean it's going to hold together. Doesn't mean it's going to, be soluble at the right level and blah, 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 blah. So yeah, we'll have to dedicate a whole episode to that one, because that is a large question to answer. But we'll get that done, right?
Yeah,
That'll be
I think
a good
so.
episode.
That was one of the things as well. I mean, when we had John on, time went so quick, didn't it? But it'd be great to get his thoughts again on his base mixes and how to formulate mixes. He touched on it, didn't he, at the end of the episode?
John
Baker.
Oh, John Baker. Yeah. I associate John Baker with flavours. But yeah, I mean, yeah, of course. Yeah, John would have some good things to say. I just want to get John back on, because I think there's so much more we need to talk, we could talk about. Not to mention his own angling, by the way, because he has been fishing for a long time, and obviously, he's fished on some very historic waters, so just forget bait, just his account of his angling life that's a couple of episodes at least, just on its own. So yeah, I'd love to get John back on. I'm sure we'll make it happen soon. Right, next question, just moving on. Rich, hi lads, I have a couple of questions for the podcast. I'm really interested in getting into pastes, with a lot of my fishing short sessions stalking at close range in gin clear water. Seeing fish do me many times, I'm thinking paste could be a way to tempt them. First off, if they're doing you, I'm guessing you're meaning that they're sucking in your rig and blowing it out. I would look at your rigs if that keeps happening. Although, that being said, yeah, look, watching fish in the edge, you'll realise how often you get picked up and spat out. But yeah, maybe look at your rigs there. Please, could you give a basic recipe or base to make as a paste? I know glamour possibilities are endless. I think that's a autocorrect thing. But an idea of how to get the attractor level right would be so helpful. He's got a second question. I'll answer that. As far as getting the attractor level right, basically for paste, use things that you can't overdo, right? So don't go adding in sort of synthetic powdered additives or anything like that, or flavors or anything, liquid flavors, because of course you can overdo it. Instead, rely on good solid ingredients. Pre-digested fish meal, CPSP 90, is something that I put in pretty much all my paste. It's very soluble, it's very attractive to fish. That is a good one. You can just mix that up with something like semolina, and that will go into a paste, and add some other bits in. So yeah, as far as not overdoing it, just use natural ingredients, and you're gonna be good to go on that one. Pete, you've not done that much with paste, I don't think, have you? Or have you?
No, not apart from sort of doing a paste wrap around a boilie, that sort of thing. But no, I've not done a great deal. Mate, I always keep some of my base mix left over, some of the paste. It's left over from the rolling. I just keep to one side, keep it wrapped up in the fridge, chuck a little bit in the freezer, that sort of thing. Interesting, he was talking about being sort of done, and he thinks the paste might sort of help him from that side of things. But straight away that got me thinking, I've not done a lot of stalking with paste and things. I know you have. Do fish feed differently when you're using a paste?
I think fish feed differently on different things, right? And I mean, I know I said that we maybe need to look at your rigs. That being said, if you're giving something to the fish that they really want, excuse me, I'm burping again. Of course, they're going to suck it in with potentially more gusto and more enthusiasm. So yeah, that comes into it. If there's something that you're fishing with and they're kind of interested in it, you can watch them. You can tell they're going to suck it in with, and be a bit half-assed about it. Obviously, if they're in that mode, the rig isn't going to work as efficiently, because it's not flying up as quick. Therefore, it's going to come out easier and quicker when they realize something's wrong. So yeah, I think fish will definitely feed to different enthusiasm levels, for want of a better phrase, depending on what you're giving. Pastes are funny, right? I find some of the best pastes I've made, I think they're probably best fish single. Like, you start feeding little bits and they'll feed it, but it'll tail off. It's almost like it's too... I mean, this is putting human terms on it, but it's almost like it's too rich. It's too much once they've got a few balls of it. And they've had enough very quickly, if that makes sense. Compared to something like a good boilie or a pellet where... or especially particle, it seems like they can eat a lot more of it. Maybe not as enthusiastically, but they can eat a lot more and not get sick of it so quickly, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But generally how I fish paste is I'll flick out a few bits and have my paste bait as one of them. And I use those coils that you can tie to your hair. That's the way I fish paste. Oh, I mean, that means, again, I'll happily fish paste as a single. Like, it's a highly attractive bait. A little tip for you, I would use some wheat germ in the paste mix as well, because wheat germ will float off. So as your paste is dissolving and breaking down and all the attractors, they're soluble, they're leaking out, which is very attractive to the fish because it's dispersed in the water. You want it to travel up through the water column. You want it to go upwards, don't you? Because the fish aren't going to be coming from below, because obviously that's the bottom of the lake. So something that floats, like wheat germ, is just going to carry the soluble bits up. Wheat germ isn't soluble, but it will carry those goodies up. So yeah, that's a little tip that I would say definitely do.
Nice. Do you always sort of like, you prepare your powder sort of form at home, and then do you mix it up sort of on the bank?
No, yeah, I've got a like a clip lock lid, these like plastic tubs, just with a paste mix in there. And look, I'm not precious about it. Like, I've just had a delivery of a certain type, like some Balakan powder. I'll sprinkle a little bit of that in and see what difference that makes. It's you can be a little bit more fancy free with a paste, as long as it holds and disperses, of course. But you can be a little bit more fancy free with it compared to like a boilie, which obviously has to hold together. Ideally, you're going to want it to go out in a stick, like a throwing stick, unless you've got savage bird life. Do you know, all these different kind of parameters you have? Whereas with paste that's just going on a paste coil, or you're just flicking in the edge, you don't really have those parameters to work to. You know, so you can be a bit more free with it. But you want it very soluble. As I said, pre-digested fish meal is a good one. Obviously, there's the other classic soluble ingredients that are very attractive to fish. You know, a bit of bird food, a bit of semolina maybe, if even. You're good to go, and then you can add bits and build it on from there. But yes, mate, to answer your question, I just make the powder up beforehand, and crikey, that pot of powder which I'm looking across at now, I probably made that up probably a year ago.
Ooh.
Getting on for a year ago. Yeah, probably needs to freshen up a little bit, to be honest. But yeah, just make it up, and then, you know, just dip into it as and when you need it. Scoop it out, put it in another little pot, just add little bits of water in until you've got the right amount. Add your liquids in. I use hydros, and then you're good to go.
Cool. And was there a two-parter to this question as well?
There was a second part to it, yeah. Second question is about essential oils. I've purchased some from Oils for Life after listening to the Dean Towie episodes, brackets twice. I'm a total new bait maker, would love to catch on a bait I've made myself. I'm just not sure how much essential oil to put into a 1 egg hook bait mix. I know this is a bit cheeky, as you guys have spent years learning. What's the best? Just a small point in the right direction would be most helpful. Keep up the great work, amazing podcast, blah 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 blah. Thanks very much, Rich, really appreciate that. Essential oil levels, Pete, go for it, mate. I'm going to go for a piss.
Wow. Well, every single essential oil has a different inclusion level. I think initially you got to go with, if you're testing and you're making hook baits, you've got to go with your nose. I think that would be a good starting point. So, for example, I've got a garlic essential oil at the moment where 1 drop to 1 egg is too potent. So it really comes through too strong, and it masks everything else within the bait. So I guess every essential oil is completely different. For example, the orange essential oil we've been using on Dean's recommendations. I've been using up to 8 drops per egg. And I guess with different flavour levels, you want to use it as a label and you want it to come through. You're right, mate.
8 drops an egg. That's
yeah, but
significant.
I've been using that with Scopex.
Is that in a feed bait though, or a hook bait?
Hook bait.
Yeah, exactly. So we need to point that out, don't we?
Yeah, I think I did. I don't know if I did or not, to be honest. But yeah, and I was saying that that the garlic essential oil I've got at 1 drop per egg is just too much. So your nose is kind of the indicator to go for initially. And from there, dependent on catch results, and you play with different levels, you can sort of tweak it to your requirements. But it's, as with everything with bait making, it's trial and error. There's no easy way. It's time on the bank, time making bait. That's your sort of what you've got to go through.
Yeah, as well as that, like, they will vary a lot. So what's a common essential oil? Black pepper essential oil, right? I think that's well, John Baker certainly reckons that's the most widely used essential oil. Look, black pepper essential oil will vary dramatically depending on where you get it, to a profound level. So, you know, if you get some from, say, I don't know who sells like Premier Baits, for example, I don't know if they do it or not, and then you get one from Oils for Life, like, they're quite possibly going to need totally different levels. So I know it's not the answer you want, but it really does depend on the type of oil that you get. It depends where you get it from, like how concentrated it is, how it's been extracted. So yeah, tough one to answer. If you directly have an essential oil you want to use, you want to just message us. I'll message you back directly and say, you know, what I'll do with it, because I realise we're being a bit vague. But yeah, it just depends on the oil. Really does, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Every single oil's different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just as I just said, just because it's black pepper oil, Don't think they're all the same strength, because they're definitely not.
No, some of the ones on eBay, for example, which you can get for like 99p, just aren't worth their 99p.
No. Yes, that's worth saying as well, isn't it? You know, get a good quality essential oil. There's different extraction methods. Obviously, they can water down, you know, just because it says a pure essential oil. Yeah, don't be fooled by that. Stick to a reputable company. Is that the right word, Pete?
Reputable. I mean, NutraBaits used to be the one, didn't it?
Reputable. There we go. Is that right?
Yeah, it sounds good to me. The beers.
Every
beers
day's a
have
learning
sunk in,
day
haven't
when
they?
every day's a learning day when you speak to Pete. You know, always bringing his education out, isn't you?
Yeah, I think you've just self-educated yourself on that one, mate. That was a one-way conversation.
Fair enough. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Just send us a message. Tell us which essential oil you've got. I'll put you straight on it, mate. I've done a savage amount of testing on different essential oils over the last year or so. So yeah, let me know. I'll not that I've got all the answers. I'm not saying that, but I could probably give you a good starting point. Next question. We gotta roll through these now. Jeff the Noddy says, how shit has spring been? I don't know, man. A lot of people are saying that, but there's been a fair few decent fish come out at different points. So if you're talking about general weather, just for, you know, moving around, yeah, it's been a shocking spring, isn't it, really? Compare it to last year, freaking worlds apart, haven't we?
Oh God, yeah, hugely.
Next question, CSL. This is from Frid Paul. That's all he's put. CSL.
Marcus Watts in Cornwall. If people want to look up Mirage Baits, he's got an interesting one at the minute. He's got a CSL that he's selling, and he's got like an activator for it as well, which I know people have been raving about. I've got some.
It's an old school. See, CSL has changed a lot, hasn't it, over the years?
Yeah.
So his is like old school style, right?
Yes. Yeah. No. Absolutely. I think he's only got a limited supply of it, so it's worth checking out. I think you can find him on Facebook.
Isn't the problem though that it is like genuinely old school?
Well, I believe it is. Yeah.
Like he's just bought 15-year-old stock that got found in a warehouse or something. Am I right, Pete?
I wouldn't know, mate.
I think there's better things out there right now if you're looking for a liquid to add attraction. I mean, there's some very good hydrolysates around at the moment. I appreciate a lot of them are thicker than CSL. If you need a thinner thing, then just water them down with water or a thinner liquid such as the squid branfish sauce. That's my take on that. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, Pete.
No, I don't think so.
Throwback Carp, which is another long-term listener. I believe he's in Toronto, I believe. Someone who's messaged us a lot, which is always nice. How to discover... Oh, God, good question. How to discover new additives and bait ingredients that are not available in the bait shop. Good question, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say
now,
the internet is your friend.
Well, something springs to my mind, and it was a conversation we had the other day, and I don't know if you're going to want to say it or not, Pete. But you were talking to someone who could remain nameless, who spoke to someone else very well known in the industry. About. Do you want to relay this story?
No, because I've got no idea what you're going to go with yet.
Oh, the story you told me, I think it was last week. You were speaking to someone in the industry who was speaking to someone else in the industry. Who they wanted to bring the bait out and they wanted to base it all off of a certain powder. Yeah. Do you want to bring that up or not?
Yeah, I mean you can do, mate. If we're doing it, you go ahead. You go and say.
What's your thing?
It's basically. Yeah, it's not my thing. It's basically I don't know. I think a lot of the time these companies and people are releasing baits and they're just sort of clutching at straws. So, for example, the next big thing might just be a very good marketing idea and everyone will jump on the bandwagon, and actually there's probably been next to no testing on it. And it's just pulling out an idea out of fresh air that they can sell to people, and they know it will sell more to the point than it'll actually work.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's a couple of ways to look at it, isn't there? It's like when you start looking into bait deeper, it's like, well, why is it working? Okay, this ingredient's really good. The best way is to test it. And, if you think back to our Bill Cottam episode, which was enlightening, I mean, a lot of the time, we were asking, like, so why is this ingredient really good? He's like, it just works. Like, the fish like it. That's all you need to know. And it's this whole mentality of, like, test, which is obviously very, very valid and really important.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, ultimately, you got to test it against the fish, and they will tell you everything they need to know. But also, if you think about ingredients, and once you get to learn about them, you think, okay, well, why is X ingredient working very well? Is it the amino acid profile? Is it the free aminos? Is it the organic acids? Is it just very high in nucleotides or something like that? Once you start identifying this, you'll see patterns into bait, and then baits and bait ingredients, they never look the same, do they, Pete?
Nope.
Once you understand what they're doing, and then you might have been reading about a couple of ingredients, maybe you listen to a podcast where they're talking about a couple of things, and you're like, fucking hell, I need these 2 ingredients in my bait. Maybe they're bringing the same things to the table. Like, maybe they're giving the bait the same things, in which case it's no point including both of them, because they're just serving you shitloads of nucleotides, is just as a random example.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you want to know what that bait or what that ingredient is actually doing, right? Once you've got all of that, then maybe you've got a better understanding and you're in a better position to go out and think, ooh, X ingredient might be a really good shout because it's quite possibly high in, free aminos, for example, or whatever it might be. I don't know if that helps or if I've made sense there or not. I don't know if you can add to it, Pete. But I think realistically, if you're in the realms of trying to find new ingredients that are going to deliver the goods with a bait, generally, you're probably going to be a bit more advanced in the bait world. You're going to understand how ingredients work, or at least you should understand how they work. And yeah, I would just say look at that kind of thing. A lot of the very effective bait ingredients are derived from animals, and that's no coincidence. So I think that's something to think about in its own.
I think a good person to speak to about that would be Jason Ryder, wouldn't it? Because he spends a lot of his time, I think, looking for something new. I think when it comes to bait, that's something that ticks his boxes, isn't it? Looking for that new thing. He touched on it, didn't he, in our previous pod?
And we're speaking to Jason on Saturday, aren't we?
We are, yeah. So maybe we could bring it up, put it to the man.
We'll forget. We'll forget.
Potentially, yeah. Well, mate.
Yeah, we'll try and remember.
I'm going to be sober for that one completely. So. There we go. I'll remember.
You drinking?
Do you know what, mate? I honestly haven't had a drink. I can't believe it. I've brought beers with me, and I haven't even opened one up. You're loose now. I'm sensing it.
Yeah, I've had quite a few beers. At the minute, I've just cracked open a Brewdog Lost, which is a Planet First lager, Pete, let me tell you. United we stand for better beer, fiercely defiant and independent. I'd like to take a moment to discuss this beer, actually. The world's first carbon-negative beer. Drink beer, plant trees. The Lost Forest. In the Scottish Highlands is our big reforestation plan to help create a carbon-clean planet.
I mean,
that's all it says, actually. Yeah. I was expecting more.
The Highlands in Scotland isn't the kind of place I think of that's sort of suffered deforestation and they need to grow more trees.
I've just come back from Scotland.
Yeah.
I was up there for like 4 or 5 days. 5 days.
Was the deforestation an issue? Or?
I mean, I went all over the spot. I don't know. I wouldn't. I was all over the place. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. It's just not the kind of thing you think of in Scotland, is it?
No, but maybe it's a space where they have scope to plant trees.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not that they're just like lacking trees in Scotland. Well, I suppose there's not that many trees. I guess there's, I don't know. It's a lot of highland, and we went all around Skye and the Isle of Skye. It's a lot of open land, isn't it? Do they need trees? I don't know. Maybe it's just a nice spot to plant some trees.
It's open to the elements, isn't it? Trees probably don't grow very well there because of the nature of the land. Mate, I don't have a freaking clue. God knows what I'm talking about here. Just
sounds good though, doesn't it? Planting trees sounds great.
Yeah.
There's a guy that's tuned into the kind of like cult ale style. What's it called? Not cult ale. Like microbreweries. Mm-hmm. What's this modern ale style thing called? There's a name for it. Anyway, there's a guy that's like a bit of a name in that. He wants to come on our podcast, doesn't he?
Yeah.
We'll have to get him on.
Yeah, for sure. Sure.
That'll be a good one, especially if he provides the beer, which I'm hoping.
That's one of the ones you want to do an in-person one.
Well, he can post, can't he?
Yeah.
He can.
Yeah, he can, yeah.
Well, if not, fuck him. He ain't coming on. No, just joking. There we go. Anyway, moving on. I feel like this is going downhill. Where are we up to with the questions? That's it. Nice. That's all the questions done.
Well, mate, I mean, we've been... Okay, this podcast isn't going to be this long, but we've been recording for over 2 hours now. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on, mate?
Not really. I think this is a bit of a catch-up episode, isn't it?
For sure.
I was obviously, as we said before, it's been a while since we've done one of these. It's just for unforeseen circumstances. To be honest, as Pete said, he's been going through some tough times with family, and I appreciate you. Maybe you don't want to go into detail about that, Pete, or you obviously can if you want. But yeah, it's just been very difficult, isn't it, to nail one of these down, and this, that, and the other. So yeah, I think this episode just serves as a bit of a catch up. We're still going to be producing these episodes without a lot of message, like wondering where the hell we are. Probably worth mentioning, isn't it, that we did have to take down the Bill Cottam episode.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, fair few people, have thought that we're getting sued or something like that, and that's why we're not producing podcasts. That's not the case. We took that episode down. I have to be careful what I say. Out of respect for Bill, not because we had to, not because any company wanted us to. And there's a lot of speculation going around about why we had to take it down. It's not that. We did it out of respect to Bill. And when Bill feels it's okay to bring it back online, then we'll do that. We'll probably edit it a little bit. Not that we were naughty or anything, but just to make sure we're not discussing anything that possibly shouldn't be discussed. So we'll probably re-edit it and bring it out. We also have a part 2 of Bill as well, so you've got that to look forward to. But yeah, don't worry, guys. Like, the podcast is not ending. We're going to keep going. We will be more regular than we have been. We'd like to put one out every other week, Pete, would you say?
Yeah, I think that's the goal, isn't it? Every other week's comfortable. And like you say, I mean, we're going to get 2 done this week, and then the ball's firmly rolling again. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean... And actually, I've just remembered part of, I think it was John Dubu's question we didn't answer, is he was asking us what we've learned from the podcast, but he also asked us who we would like to have on. I think we should cover that, because that's a good question, right?
Yeah.
Who would you like to see? It just me and you talking now, really. Who would you like to have on, mate?
Oh, mate, I honestly don't know. I think I would like to get Frank Warwick on. I think Frank Warwick would be a very entertaining guest.
He's coming on. He said he's going to do it. Mm-hmm. So he should be coming on at some point. And I'm pretty damn sure he's a man of his word, and we'll make it happen. It's just a time thing. So yes, Frank Warwick will happen.
Mate, I'll tell you who I've seen quite a lot of their sort of media stuff at the moment. And hang on 1 sec. I've dropped me recording device. His podcast with Nash was fantastic. Somebody I'd like to speak to would be Adam Pennin. I think he'd be a great guest.
We had Adam Penning on, didn't we? We just didn't.
His internet kept dropping out, mate. That was the problem.
Internet kept dropping out. We didn't. It just. We said, look, we'll do it another time, and then we never got round to it. And then he ended up doing some other podcast, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Just leaving us in the dirt, didn't he? Really?
I don't know.
Turned his back on us.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I'd like to speak with Adam Pennin. He's one of the...
What, just to have it out with him?
Yeah, pretty much, mate. No, I think he's one of the people who, I guess when I was getting into carp fishing a long time ago, was fairly influential, really.
He's back with Drennan and ESP and that.
That's it, yeah. Yeah, and I just think he'd be a good guest, good chat. He's just someone I'd probably like to sit down and talk to.
Shit.
Even if not on a podcast, just on a conversational level.
For me, I tell you who I mean, there's loads of people I'd love to have on, but Jeff Bowers, big ones for me. Sean Harrison. I mean, we got Sean Harrison on when we were pretty fresh into this, weren't we?
Yeah.
That was big for me because I've read Sean Harrison's writings for years. So that was big for me. John Baker was big for me. Really enjoyed that. Jeff Bowers would be fantastic. Yeah, I don't think he does this kind of thing. I tell you someone else, actually, who, it probably not as big a name as John Baker, etc. But Kenny Gates, who I get bait from, he would be an amazing guest. And quite a few people message me, actually. A surprising amount of people were like, you're going to get Kenny on, etc. I guess they do that because I've mentioned that I use his bait a few times on the podcast. And I guess I just wanted to kind of get to know him a little. I envisaged I'd be going down to get bait from him more often than I have done. And I guess I just wanted to get to know him a little bit better first. But yeah, he'd be a good guest as well. Kevin Ellis would be a great guest as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I know he's like, obviously the Kevin Ellis fish is, I think he's been riding that for a while. I'm sure he wouldn't mind me saying, but I mean, still very interesting guy and just a character. I mean, if you're going on about characters, there's lots of characters in carp angling, isn't there? Which would make great guests. But like the older lot, I'd really want to get on.
Yeah, I think that's what sort of our listenership sort of, I think a lot of sort of, I don't know, guys who are maybe 40 plus. Would you agree?
Yeah, I guess so.
Sort of resonates with them, those type of guests. We're not all about the drum and bass.
Yeah, I think we've definitely got a sort of niche in the market, haven't we? As you'd say. With the older lot, maybe the more older school, like the older hands, maybe, which is nice. I don't know why they want to listen to a couple of fucking idiots like us, but yeah, no, it's nice, and yeah, and by the way, like that's the other thing. It never ceases to amaze me, like who listens to this podcast as well. We can't believe it, can we? Like we were obviously not going to name drop and not going to be dickheads about it, but like we're just, there's some big names listen to us, and it's like that's fucking crazy because we're just a couple of idiots with a microphone, and some strong opinions. Like that's pretty much it, and it's crazy who does listen to these things, or who do listen to these things, I guess is correct English, but yeah, I mean, if you're one of those older hands and, you got some tales to tell, like, and you're listening, like, reach out, let us know. We're always, happy to get new guests on. Quite a few of our guests we want to get back on, but I don't want the podcast to be like just this churn over of the same guests. As amazing as our previous guests are, and they've got lots to say, like we want new guests as well. We want to keep it fresh. Hopefully, you know what I mean when I say all that. Like we've got Jason Ryder coming back on, which is I love talking to Jason. He's a great guest. But we wouldn't want to just keep having him and Dean on repeat, for example. You know, we want new people coming on. So if you know anyone that would make a great guest, or even if you listening think you've got a few tales to tell, reach out, let us know. We want new people. And we just want to just shoot the shit about carp fishing, basically, don't we? Yeah. Oh, that reminds me. We also, I think, want to do, well, I've been thinking about this a lot, Pete, is a local legends series. I spoke to you about that, right?
Yeah, you have.
Basically, anglers that they're not in the limelight, they're not writing for the magazines, they're not, so-called superstars. They're what they say, they're like, local legends, people just getting on with their carp angling, catching some amazing fish, quote unquote under the radar, as you'd say. There's one guy that springs to mind, and I spoke to him, who fishes the water park. He's not keen for it because he just wants to stay very private, which I totally respect. But people like him would just make phenomenal guests. And who knows, I might be able to get him on. He's an extremely passionate guy. You could hear him, like he could tell you about how he's how he brushes his teeth in the morning, and you'd be wrapped up in it. He's that kind of guy. It just so happens that he also catches some real lovely carp, and he does it in quite interesting ways. So he'd be a great guest. But there's loads of people like that we'd like to do, and just kind of lesser known people.
For example, sort of Stephen White, he approached us, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
And his podcast, so somebody who's approached us who wanted to sort of come on and just talk to us about bait, was one of the most sort of fascinating, engaging podcasts we've had. So what I'm saying is, if there's any listeners out there who think they'd like to come on and just have a chat with us, just send a message and we'll see where it can go.
If you're passionate about angling, then I think everyone has a good story to tell, don't they? If they've been fishing long enough.
Absolutely.
Everyone. Fucking hell, that's a good point. We should do another episode where we're telling past stories.
It just shines us in a bad light, mate.
Oh God. More so me, let's be honest.
Well, yeah, you can't. Yeah, you've got no doubt on me, mate.
I haven't. I must have some dirt on you, but it's
clean,
very
mate.
limited.
I keep it clean.
You do, don't you?
Yeah.
I must say, recently we have definitely switched roles. So when I used to live in Cornwall, we used to fish together. I was the crazy one, but now, Pete, I mean, you are posh, Pete. Don't get me wrong. You're pretty fucking straight, but you're always the first to spark a beer. You're always the first to you are. Yeah, do something irresponsible. Yeah, times have changed, mate. Times have changed a little bit.
That's it. Well, mate. Yeah. Well, hot news, actually, mate. And we should say on the podcast, congratulations to Sam, because you are now engaged to be wed, aren't you? So maybe this is why you're being sensible.
Maybe. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I am. Yeah. Pop the question. Yeah. Okay. Getting grown up, I guess.
Yeah.
Getting old, mate.
Got to happen at some point, mate.
I know. I've left it a long time, to be fair.
But yeah, right. Is that a good time to round up, do we think?
Think so, mate.
Happy days.
End on a low note, shall we?
What?
My
No,
demise.
I thought you'd be buzzing. I thought you'd be happy, but no. Your poor missus, mate. You've said some horrible things.
Well, why would you say that? And why would you think that's a good note to end on?
I thought it was. Oh, I'd say you say horrible things.
You've said some horrible things about her, haven't you?
Well, we've had people message in and be like, "I can't believe you said that about your missus."
Like what?
Mate, was it the Spodcast one? I think you sort of said like,
"Oh yeah,
yeah." We had a few people messaging
Mate,
saying, "I can't believe you said that about your missus."
she don't listen anymore."
Phew.
Anything else to add, Pete? Anything else you want to go over? Or are we going to wrap this thing up?
No, time to wrap it up, mate. It is
Time to wrap it up.
super late. It is super quiet on the lake, and I've realised that I have relaxed into the podcast, mate, and my voice is quite loud. What I didn't say when you sort of said to set the scene, I've come down to the lake, and there's quite a few sort of match guys, and bizarrely they've got like tents set up in the car park, and they're sleeping in the car park, but they've left all their gear in the swims overnight. So I had to get one of them to shift all his gear, so we're a bit late starting. I don't know what the time is now because my phone is glued to my ear, but it's pretty late, I'm assuming.
So that is weird, isn't it? Because it's definitely not a match venue, is it?
I've spoke to the guys.
And probably
they've like grown up down here. They're all family, and they have their membership. They live up country, but they have their membership to the club, and it's just very special to them. And they come down for a trip every year.
Yeah, it's definitely not a match venue. I never saw anyone. I only ever saw carp anglers there.
Yeah, I've seen. There's a lot of pleasure anglers on here at the moment, all through the winter. Actually, yeah, I spent a lot of time down here, sort of leading around and stuff, and speaking to the pleasure anglers. They were here every week.
What are they fishing for?
It's bream, mate. It's big. There's some big tension here. It's a very special tench, actually. Perch, roach, big roach actually as well.
How big are the roach and the perch?
Right, the perch numbers. So I don't fish for perch.
Sorry, tench. And perch.
Well, I think the perch sort of used to have a lot of big perch in here, but there's not so many around anymore. But I think it's sort of like two and a half pounders, something like that. And tench, mate. Well, I was showing a photo of a tench thing. Something like £7 came out the other day. It's a fairly hefty tench.
It is for Cornwall as well, isn't it?
I don't know if you can remember sort of Retallick, mate. Those tench in there used to grow big. Fight like hell. Always in bad condition.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah, they weren't the nicest tench, to be honest, were they?
No, just big and powerful.
I don't remember them being that big, to be honest.
I do.
I suppose there was a lot of sort of like 5-pounders in there, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty savage. Yeah. Yeah. What about the bream? How big did the bream go there?
Do you know what? I don't have any bream. I've not caught any bream out of here. So I don't know. I have no idea, to be honest.
We all know I was a specimen bream hunter back in my Realtree days.
Absolutely, mate. I look forward to your birthday.
Yeah. I don't even know why I put your photo. Oh, it was your birthday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'll do it.
God, mate, those photos are awful.
Not that bad. Not that bad. No. You've got a photo of me. Oh, no, I've got a photo of you. Do you remember that night we fished? I don't remember where it was. Probably wouldn't want to name it on here anyway. But do you remember that night? I'm embarrassed myself now. I was really upset about a girl. Do you?
Yeah, well, you went for a little phase, didn't you?
Yeah, I think my life at that point was pretty shit, wasn't it? And I think this was like probably the straw that just broke me. But yeah, I remember that night quite well, actually. And actually, no, it's not a picture of me. I thought you had a picture of me snuggled up to like a bap. But I think I've got a picture of you snuggled up to a bap. Is that right? Like a bread bap.
Oh, yeah, probably. Mate, I do remember that.
It's a good photo. I don't know who it is, or me or you.
No,
I can't remember. It's fucking years ago.
This is, oh God, it's a bit of a shit story, but that morning, you'd put like a photo of me all snuggled up with a bread roll on social media. And then weirdly in the night, I took a photo of you like all snuggled up to something. I don't know, mate. I think we've got a photo of each other. Mate, that was the night that, I don't know if you can remember this, but my car had broke down or my battery had gone or something. And where the car park was, I was parked on a real slope and it was blocking you in. Can you remember that? And the only way we could get my car out, we had to put the unhooking mats between.
Didn't I? I drove into your car, didn't I? And just pushed it up.
Yeah, mate, we put our unhooking mats between the bumpers and you just fucking shunted me up a hill.
I remember that. Yeah, I do remember that, actually.
Yeah, good memories, mate.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot I forget, isn't there? Just misspent youth, but loads of beers. I do, but that is one of the things I remember. I was really cut up about a girl, wasn't I?
Yeah, you were. Yeah.
I don't, which is not usually me, but for whatever reason, fucking hell, that got to me, didn't it?
Yeah, you were in a funny place, mate.
Fuck. I was in a bad place. I mean, I remember crying on the bank, and not to give it the big one, macho, but I'm not the kind of guy to cry over a girl. Really not. But yeah, life was bad, wasn't it, for me back then?
Yeah, I see. I don't remember. I
wasn't
can remember
good.
you being upset about it, but you brought it up the other day, and I can't. I was a bit like, it took me a while to sort of to jog it.
I brought it up the other day.
Yeah, you did. I think maybe on our social. When we did our social.
Right.
I don't think you were. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, God, just life's just changed a hell of a lot, isn't it? Over the last sort of
Mate,
15 years.
15,
I suppose.
yeah. Damn.
Yeah.
God, it's a long time, isn't it?
It is, it is and it isn't. I mean, yeah, on one hand it is, but on another hand, it doesn't seem that fucking long ago, does it?
No. No, not at all,
It's
mate.
15 years blinks by. 5 years blinks by, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just scary. It's just life is scary, and as far as time goes,
I know, mate.
you know.
Like, your kids are little adults now.
Yeah,
Mental. Actually mental.
Tyler would beat you in a fight.
I'm
put it
sure.
that way.
Yeah, I'm sure he would, mate.
Yeah. Well, Tyler. Yeah, it's just crazy, isn't it? Yeah, life's crazy. Moves quick, and yeah, there we go. Anyway, I feel like probably should round this podcast up, right?
Yeah, for sure. Cool.
That's it. Boom, we're out.
Good night.